Chapter 1462, Late Divine Transformation. Chapter 1462, Late Divine Transformation. Only by leaving behind a name on the Emperor Stone would they receive a God rune. This was the mission given to them by the Azura Road's heavenly Tao. However, according to the mission description, after completing it, the reward should have been a blue soul level rune. Yet, the one Lin Ming obtained was a Zenith Black God rune. It wasn't just him, Xiao Moxian was also the same. This was now the third Zenith Black God rune that Lin Ming had obtained. First were the protection of God and blessing of God, and now he had obtained another one from the Emperor Stone. It must have been because me and Xiao Moxian both perfectly carved our names onto the Emperor Stone, thus the original Blue Soul level runes were upgraded to Zenith Black runes. As Lin Ming was thinking this, the Emperor Stone rune turned into a beam of light that zoomed into his body, entering his inner world. In that instant, Lin Ming could feel the three God runes resonating beautifully within his inner world. In the next moment, they all broke apart at the same time, turning into pure energy. This energy was like fresh spring water, revitalizing Lin Ming's body. This energy was different from ordinary energy. It did not enter through his meridians or acupoints but spread through his blood levels and fascia, swimming through his entire body. What Lin Ming cultivated was the power of divinity. True essence, astral essence, spirit essence, all of it could be used by him. The mellowness of true essence, the fierceness of astral essence, and the flexibility of spirit essence, none of these characteristics were found in this energy. Rather, this energy was warm like spring water as it flowed through his body, seeming to be independent of these three types of energy. This was a new type of energy. When the Azura Road Master comprehended the 33 heavenly Taos and created the Azura Road, this was an energy he created beneath the inherent rules of his heavenly Tao. After this energy ran through Lin Ming's entire body, it gathered in his inner world where it began to attack the boundaries of it. Lin Ming was shocked by this sudden change in the situation. He had long since reached the peak of the middle divine transformation realm. If his inner world were to continue evolving, he would directly step into the late divine transformation realm and complete the sixth shift of the 9 divine shift. Lin Ming was immersed in energy that revitalized his entire being, an intoxicating feeling. At this time, the Emperor Stone force field that had vanished reappeared once more, covering his body. However, this force field was different from before. Before, the force had placed a tremendous pressure on him, causing him to revolve most of his energy to resist it. But now, this force field was comfortable and light. The force field wrapped the entire area around Lin Ming, placing him in an invisible cocoon. Within the protection of this cocoon, Lin Ming felt as if he were placed back in his mother's womb, unimaginably cozy. Vaguely, as if through the lens of a dream, Lin Ming could see Xiao Moxian also wrapped in this giant cocoon. Her eyes were closed tight and her face was flushed red. Her eyebrows gently shook and her lips were curved up in a happy smile. She was clearly ecstatic. Lin Ming knew that similar changes were occurring within Xiao Moxian. Within her body was likely 2 or 3 Zenith Black God runes, and now those God runes had transformed into a strange power. Although this strange power didn't belong to the essence gathering system, it actually fused together true essence, astral essence, and spirit essence within their bodies, allowing their cultivation to step upwards. Lin Ming knew that God runes were extremely valuable. There were many martial artists in the Azura Road that didn't plan on completing full sets of God runes to participate in the final trial. Even so, they still continued to collect God runes to sell them to others who desired them. A set of gold runes was priceless. A rare blue soul God rune was something that even a holy lord would viciously struggle for. As for a Zenith Black level God rune, there was even less to speak of. The higher quality a God rune was, the more valuable it was. These God runes brought about all sorts of advantages. They could enhance strength, defense, blood vitality, destiny. There were even those that could directly increase one's cultivation and have them undergo breakthroughs in realms. At this time, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were like butterflies being reborn in a cocoon. Wrapped within the thick force field, their bodies were constantly transforming, evolving. Not too far away, the martial artists below were able to guess what was happening as they saw this. This was likely the advantage granted by the Emperor Stone for leaving their names at the highest peak. In the eyes of these people, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were originally unrivaled proud children of heaven. Now, they obtained even more advantages, allowing their strength to rise to an all-new level. This sort of transformation was something that really aroused everyone's envy. In the crowd of people, Monster Prince Juyu clenched his fists, his eyes shining brilliantly as he looked up at Xiao Moxian and Lin Ming, wrapped up together in a force field. His complexion was extremely ugly. This great lucky chance of transforming together with Xiao Moxian left his heart bleeding with jealousy. Why is it him? Why is it not me? Monster Prince Juyu gnashed his teeth together. He recalled his high-spirited mood as he arrived at Precipice Cliff and how he had stomped over the White Chalk family and Blue Sword faction. Everything he did was simply a joke. What meaning was there in competing with common mortals like them? Moreover, what he found that hardest to acknowledge was that he had a strong premonition that if he were to continue going forwards with Lin Ming, today's situation would simply repeat itself again and again. This Azura Road was a giant trial field to begin with. There were lucky chances everywhere. As long as you had the strength, as long as you had the destiny, everything was yours to obtain. The strong became stronger. The weak became weaker. The weak wouldn't even be able to find an opportunity. They would simply be weeded out by the Azura Road's cruel and merciless law of the jungle. Although Monster Prince Juyu had a deep hatred and envy towards Lin Ming, he couldn't help but admit that whether it was strength or destiny, he was already cast miles off by Lin Ming. This meant that if he were to continue traveling with Lin Ming, every piece of bad luck would be his and all the advantages would be Lin Ming's. This damned Lin Lanjian, how can I get rid of him? A cold and ominous light flashed in Monster Prince Juyu's eyes. Because of how hard he was clenching his fists, his nails had dug deep into his palms, drawing blood. He didn't want to travel together with Lin Ming. In the most extreme situation, if they were to enter some mystic realm where there were near-death perils everywhere, or if they were being chased down by some peerless powerhouse, then perhaps he would be nothing but cannon fodder for Lin Ming. His death might even help Lin Ming. If one lacked destiny, if one lacked strength, then dying in a dangerous situation wasn't strange at all. At that time, there would only be Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian left to travel through the Azura Road. Every good thing would be taken by Lin Ming. As for Lin Ming ever remembering him in a good way, that was impossible. Perhaps Lin Ming might think in his heart that he was lucky to have such an idiotic fool to act as cannon fodder to help him succeed. In this case, if anything were to happen between Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian again, Monster Prince Juyu could no longer bear to imagine what would happen further. He was so angry that his liver hurt, his gallbladder hurt, and his intestines twisted together. He had determined a single thing, and that was that he couldn't continue onwards with Lin Ming. As Monster Prince Juyu was lost in his own thoughts, time continued to pass. Soon, an hour passed. During this hour, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's bodies continued to float in front of the Emperor Stone. The force field cocoon that wrapped around them had become thicker, nearly forming a separate space-time dimension. It was impossible for those outside to see either of them. This thick and large cocoon not only supported the process of Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian absorbing the energy of the god runes, it also provided a cultivation area for them. This was the best possible protection. Normally, it was already extremely difficult for a martial artist to fly past 30 miles up Precipice Cliff, much less break through this massive cocoon. In a hazy dream, Lin Ming seemed to experience an entirely different life of cultivation. He seemed to relive his time when he first started practicing martial arts at the body transformation realm. His fists struck the hard stump of an ironwood tree, each fist making dull thumping sounds. After a long, unknown period of time, the stump was wet with his blood. Without any raw materials for medicine, it was easy for hidden wounds to gather in his muscles, bones, and meridians, forming injuries that would eventually leave him crippled. However, Lin Ming marched day after day, never giving up. He continued to train, eventually reaching the breakpoint level of a martial artist, the pulse condensation realm. From that point, Hutian, Xiantian, revolving core, he continued to cultivate. The opponents he faced became increasingly powerful and the many mystic realms he ventured through became far more dangerous. He didn't know how many times he risked his life or how many times he teetered on the edge of death. But he grew stronger every day and his cultivation grew increasingly high until he became an existence that could shake the earth heavens, freely walking through the divine realm, unstoppable. He didn't know how many years passed in this dream. Then, at some time, he suddenly woke up. At this moment he discovered that his inner world had developed further. He had stepped into the late divine transformation realm. The late divine transformation realm was only a step away from the divine lord realm. And the divine lord realm was another great transformation for Lin Ming. It was an extremely critical realm. It had to be known that the good fortune Saint Sun's equivalent cultivation was also only at the peak of the late divine lord realm. If Lin Ming could enter the middle divine lord realm, then although he still wouldn't be able to defeat the good fortune Saint Sun, he should still possess the capital to contend with here. At that time, even if he encountered a world king, Lin Ming would at least have the ability to protect himself. He turned his head to glance at Xiao Moxian. He could see that Xiao Moxian had yet to complete her transformation. Her pitch-black phoenix wings still wrapped around her body, like a beautiful black-winged angel. At this time, the bright moon had fallen and the eastern skies had brightened. Dawn was arriving. Then, Xiao Moxian suddenly launched her wings. Flames seemed to burn between her eyebrows. At the same time, the giant cocoon floating in front of the Emperor Stone also released a radiant light. As the martial artists beneath Precipice Cliff saw this, all of them came to full alert. They could sense that Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were about to emerge. Everything that occurred today would be vividly recalled by everyone. 3 people had come to the Emperor Stone and left behind their mark. Of course, compared to Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, the first person, Monster Prince Juyu, was simply not worthy of mentioning. When the stories were retold in the future, he was doomed to be forgotten. Rumors had long since spread that those who left their name at the pinnacle of the Emperor Stone would obtain a reward from the Azura Road's heavenly Tao. And now, all of this was confirmed by the miracles occurring upon Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's bodies. Divine light sparkled, the winds and clouds arose from all over the world. The rising sun in the east sprinkled its golden glory upon the world. As this sheen of light reflected upon Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, the cocoon around them broke apart. They were like a god and goddess descended from the highest heavens, too dazzling to behold. The 2 of them slowly fell down. As the martial artists who had been waiting beneath Precipice Cliff all night saw the 2 of them, they were shocked speechless. 2 unrivaled geniuses of their generation had left behind their name on the peak of the Emperor Stone, one leaving the mark Xian and the other leaving behind the mark Lin. These square-foot characters contained inherent concepts, similar to a martial arts inheritance. Just by looking at them, one would gain further awareness. Then, the 2 of them also broke through their realms before the Emperor Stone, stepping in tandem into the late divine transformation realm. The so-called miracles of the world, this is what they were. Chapter 1463, The Imperial Prince Visits. Chapter 1463, The Imperial Prince Visits. As Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian landed on the ground, many martial artists subconsciously made way for them. Their eyes as they looked at Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian contained a sort of awe and admiration, like the children of small mountain villages seeing a royal prince and princess appear. Are they a pair? What an amazing couple. It's hard to imagine what level of talent their future child will have. They should be the descendants of Empyrean Holy Lands, or even true divinity Holy Lands. As the surrounding martial artists were speaking to each other, Monster Prince Juyu had an extremely dejected expression on his face. This was the same as pouring salt on his wounds. Junior apprentice sister, congratulations. Monster Prince Juyu squeezed out a smile as he saw Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian walk towards him. Monster Prince Juyu was at the peak of the late divine transformation realm. Although his cultivation had been the highest among the 3 of them, he had actually been the weakest. Now, Xiao Moxian and Lin Ming had both stepped into the late divine transformation realm and their cultivations had become much more similar. Now, his strength couldn't even be compared at all. If the 3 of them were in absolute danger and one of them had to die, there was no way he would ever be able to escape. Let's go, it's not good to stay here too long. Lin Ming said with a true essence sound transmission as his eyes swept over the martial artists beneath Precipice Cliff. What he had accomplished with Xiao Moxian just now was far too shocking. They were likely to draw the attention of many people. In addition, they had just made another breakthrough in their cultivation, and in the time it took to do so it was likely that these people around them had already sent out the news. In this dog-eat-dog world of the Azura Road, if anyone was suspected of having valuable treasures on them, then it was easy to be killed and robbed. Even if it was well known that they came from great influences, there would always be those willing to take the chance. Millimeter, let's go. Xiao Moxian's strength had just risen by a large degree. She was in a very good mood. The three people launched their movement techniques and quickly left. No one stopped them. As they were flying away, Lin Ming cast a deep glance towards Monster Prince Juyu. In the brief moment they had spoken, Lin Ming was able to faintly feel a simmering hatred from within Monster Prince Juyu, and even some killing intent. If it weren't for Lin Ming studying the divine dream law and having an extremely sharp soul perception, then it would have been impossible for him to sense Monster Prince Juyu's hatred. From the start, Monster Prince Juyu had only disliked Lin Ming. This was because Monster Prince Juyu didn't understand Lin Ming. He thought that Lin Ming was an ugly little minion of common birth, someone that posed no threat to him. Thus, he wanted to defeat and shame Lin Ming, not kill him. But now, Monster Prince Juyu had clearly birthed a killing intent in his heart. The presence of Lin Ming was an enormous threat. Not only did Lin Ming threaten the progression of his courtship towards Xiao Moxian, but there was even a threat to his destiny, his life. In the vast great desolate, Monster Prince Juyu trod upon the wind, his heart heavy and sad. He could increasingly feel that during this adventure through the Azura Road, it would be impossible for him to keep up. He had two choices: go adventuring by himself or follow Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian to his eventual death. Monster Prince Juyu could already see that the danger of the situations they encountered from now on would become increasingly terrifying, and the risks would rise every higher. If he continued with them, not only would he not obtain any advantages but he would meet only dangers instead. Junior apprentice sister, how long do you plan on staying in the Azura Road? Old Blue is still being monitored by the Wave City Lord, so the situation is dangerous for us. We should return as soon as possible. The deeper we go into the Great Desolate, the more dangers there will be. If something were to happen to you. Monster Prince couldn't finish his words before Xiao Moxian interrupted him with a laugh. I don't want to go back. This Azura Road has just started to become fun, so why would I return? If you want to return so badly, then return yourself. Xiao Moxian simply didn't bother with Monster Prince Juyu's worries. She was increasingly excited to go deeper into the Great Desolate. This result was already what Monster Prince Juyu expected. Xiao Moxian was a playful girl who loved mischief and roaming, and now that she had obtained advantages already, how could she possibly think of turning back? However, he wasn't willing to give up here. He continued to say, Junior apprentice sister, this Lin Lanjian has been following us all this time. He should be a native martial artist of the Azura Road and also knows the geography and situation of the Great Desolate extremely well. If he has evil thoughts, he might lead us to some danger zone and try to trap us so he can kill us and steal our possessions. With his strength and an advantage in location, there will be no way we can contend with him. This person is an unknown variable and his character isn't known either. I feel that there are far too many problems with him. If Monster Prince Juyu couldn't change Xiao Moxian's decision to not return, then he could only take a step back and try to convince her to throw away Lin Ming. However, the pitiful Monster Prince Juyu had never seen the true Lin Ming before, nor had he seen Lin Ming's techniques. Just seeing the brief use of the black hole seed that Lin Ming had used atop Precipice Cliff wasn't enough information for him to deduce Lin Ming's true identity. Hearing Monster Prince Juyu's divisive words, Xiao Moxian chuckled inwardly. She already knew Lin Ming's true identity. Although she wasn't happy that Lin Ming had defeated her twice already, hearing words like unknown identity, evil intentions, or killing and stealing their possessions wouldn't change her mind at all. Moreover, although Xiao Moxian seemed innocent, she wasn't naive or ignorant. In fact, she was an extremely intelligent girl, able to deduce many situations. She could already see the repulsion and hate that Monster Prince Juyu held towards Lin Ming, the envy and negative emotions that clouded his mind. It was no longer possible for him to coexist together with Lin Ming. If the two of them stayed together, there was bound to be an accident. But, if Xiao Moxian were to choose one person to travel with, the result was obvious. It was clearly Lin Ming. She was closer to Lin Ming in strength, and her talent was also similar to his. Traveling together with Lin Ming was the most suitable choice for adventuring through the Azura Road. If she were to go with Monster Prince Juyu, then as she rapidly grew, there would inevitably be a time when he would become a weight that would pull her down. Xiao Moxian didn't feel much towards Monster Prince Juyu to begin with. They were originally only ordinary martial brother and sister. She was becoming tired of the daily nagging and long-winded complaining of Monster Prince Juyu. The stern and quiet Lin Ming was much more interesting. Moreover, Xiao Moxian wanted to go with Lin Ming because she still harbored the intention of surpassing him. She wasn't resigned to continuously losing to him. "Why don't you go back by yourself?" Xiao Moxian suddenly said. Her words were a massive attack that brutally cut down Monster Prince Juyu's pride and confidence. If he were to go back alone, then he would have to leave Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian to travel through the Azura Road together. How could he be willing to allow this? Monster Prince Juyu had fallen into a conundrum. Going with Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian was clearly not viable, but neither was leaving alone. All of this was due to Lin Ming. As Monster Prince Juyu was incomparably depressed, Lin Ming was actually carefully observing his surroundings. He completely ignored the exchange between Monster Prince Juyu and Xiao Moxian. What Lin Ming was thinking about now was the ancient jade pendant he had drawn from the Wheel of Destiny. This jade had 4 words within it: Great Desolate God Trove. When Lin Ming came to the Great Desolate, leaving his name on the Emperor Stone was only a convenient side trip. The real reason he came here was to look for the Great Desolate God Trove. "Soulwhite, you said that there is a city 1,000 miles ahead, called Heaven Devil City?" "Yes. Heaven Devil City has a grand and prestigious reputation. Most martial artists that come to participate in the trials of the Great Desolate will choose Heaven Devil City as their resting location. This also makes Heaven Devil City extremely prosperous. In terms of the number of masters alone, Heaven Devil City far surpasses Wave City and the City of Discord." "All right. Then we'll go there as our next stop. We'll go to Heaven Devil City to find some information on this Emperor Jade and see if anyone can interpret this map." As Lin Ming was making these plans, he didn't know that soon after he left Precipice Cliff, another group of unexpected visitors had arrived. This group of people were mostly saints, but there were also some people from the monster and demon races. In the group, the one that stood out the most was a white-clothed youth. He was tall and thin, and although he couldn't be considered too handsome, his aura was swift and fierce. His eyebrows were sharp like swords, angled towards his temples, and his eyes were clear and slender as if they had been carved from dancing blades. A faintly evil energy exuded from his entire being. If Lin Ming were here, he would immediately recognize this person. This was Imperial Prince Naki. Soon after his fight with Lin Ming, Naki had come to the Azura Road smelting trial. For the Saint race, it was far more common to go to the Azura Road smelting trial than it was for the humans. In the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign's Holy Land alone, all direct disciples had to pass through the trial of the Azura Road. This is Precipice Cliff. As Imperial Prince Naki and his entourage arrived here, they immediately attracted the eyes of everyone else. This group of people had far too great a momentum. There were even World King powerhouses amongst them. At the edges of the Azura Road, a World King was a lord of a city. Such a person had a considerable level of status. For these people to suddenly appear at Precipice Cliff caused the hearts of many to quiver. "Out of the way! Out of the way!" Naki's minions loudly shouted for people to clear the way. This scene was similar to a crown prince going on a journey. Random nobodies naturally couldn't approach him. Soon, at the central point beneath Precipice Cliff, only Imperial Prince Naki and his people were remaining. The other common martial artists had already traveled several miles away. Although they didn't feel well doing this, they could only feel anger in their hearts with no way to voice it. "Just who is that putting on such a large show? Don't speak so casually. There are World King powerhouses amongst them. Moreover, each of those juniors has an extremely solid foundation. They are possibly from Empyrean Holy Lands. Just what has been going on in these past several days?" The Emperor Stone keeps having more and more masters arriving to challenge it. These juniors should have come for the trial here. As people were speaking, the heroic young elites in Imperial Prince Naki's group began leaping up one at a time, like fishes jumping through the Dragon Gate. Each one displayed their skills, all of them flying up at least 30 miles to leave behind their mark. There were even those that passed 33 miles, just a step away from reaching the Emperor Stone. This is the Emperor Stone that was blown so out of proportion. It doesn't seem hard at all. Imperial Prince Naki commented as he saw his junior apprentice brothers nearly reach the top. This Emperor Stone seemed a bit too mediocre for him. Your Highness Imperial Prince, it is rumored that if you can carve your name at the highest peak of the Emperor Stone and perfectly complete this trial, then you will obtain an extra reward. Your Highness must not take this lightly and strive to obtain that reward. An old man said from beside Imperial Prince Naki. This old man had an ordinary world king cultivation. In the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign's True Divinity Holy Land, an ordinary world king powerhouse could only be considered an outer court elder. In other words, a role similar to a steward. Highest peak. Imperial Prince Naki smiled. He looked towards the top to see just what marks his ancestors had left behind. At the highest point of the Emperor Stone were 2 square-foot-large characters. One was a Xian character that contained a beautiful and flexible aura. The other was a Lin character that contained a swift and fierce character, thick with killing intent. Chapter 1464, Insurmountable. Chapter 1464, Insurmountable. These 2 characters. Imperial Prince Naki rubbed his chin, intently staring at the Lin and Xian characters. Most of the marks on the Emperor Stone exuded the atmosphere of countless years, but these 2 characters seemed quite new, as if they were just carved in. How interesting. Imperial Prince Naki grinned. The Lin character reminded him of a certain someone. Of course, he couldn't confirm this at all. Wasn't it said that leaving behind a name on the highest point of the Emperor Stone was extremely difficult? That to do so perfectly was something that couldn't even occur in 100 million years. These types of rumors were passed down about the Emperor Stone, but those 2 characters up there are clearly recently carved in. It seems this Emperor Stone is also mediocre. Naki chuckled. He was considered knowledgeable about the geniuses of humanity. He suspected that the Lin character was left behind by Lin Ming, and that the Xian character might be from Xiao Moxian. During the great battle at the chaotic blood continent, Naki hadn't seen Xiao Moxian. He had only heard that she had excellent talent. Thinking about it, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's current cultivation was suitable for adventuring through the Azura Road. If Lin Ming were to have entered the Azura Road directly after their battle at Chaotic Blood Continent, then he wouldn't find that strange at all. Since Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were both able to leave behind their name at the highest point at the Emperor Stone, and also do so perfectly, Naki was fully confident he could easily accomplish the same. After all, although he had lost to Lin Ming during their showdown at the Chaotic Blood Continent, Naki still wasn't fully convinced of his loss. The truth was that from beginning to end, Lin Ming had not been able to suppress him. In fact, at the very final stages of their battle, he had faintly suppressed Lin Ming. It was only that at the most critical moment, Lin Ming had summoned forth that strange stone gate during his attack, causing him to directly impact into it. Not only did crashing into that stone gate heavily wound Naki to the point of vomiting blood, but it also caused the tide of the battle to reverse. If that hadn't happened, Imperial Prince Naki had full confidence he could have obtained victory at the end. After all, in terms of endurance, Naki had absolute confidence in himself as a body transformation martial artist. In this sort of situation, he believed that whether it was talent, potential, or strength, he far surpassed Lin Ming. If Lin Ming were able to perfectly leave his name upon the Emperor Stone, then there was no need to mention himself. Moreover, even that woman Xiao Moxian had done it. This proved that the Emperor Stone mission wasn't too difficult. Although Imperial Prince Naki had never seen Xiao Moxian before, just the rumors he had heard weren't enough to prove to him that her talent surpassed Lin Ming's. Haha, what your highness says is right. I think that this Emperor Stone seems as if it's especially prepared for you. Your highness has the title of Imperial Prince, and this is the Emperor Stone. If your highness isn't able to perfectly leave your name atop it, then the words Emperor Stone are really useless after all. Once your highness decides to go, I'm sure there will be immediate success. Some of Naki's subordinates started to flatter him. As for those people that were watching from far away, they felt contempt in their heart as they heard this. After being rudely driven out by this new group of people, all they had were criticisms in their hearts. Really, it's as if he isn't scared his tongue will be cut by the wind. It's as if he thinks leaving a name upon the Emperor Stone is some sort of fun little game. They might have seen the perfect marks that man and woman left on the Emperor Stone, thus they think it's simple to do the same. In fact, I am willing to bet that the couple from yesterday were monstrous geniuses amongst all monstrous geniuses. Hihi, I can't wait for these people to fail. Several martial artists were secretly discussing amongst themselves with true essence sound transmissions. They definitely didn't dare to say these words out loud. In the Azura Road, where there were countless masters all around, a few unwise words could easily cost someone their life. However, just as they were speaking, that white-clothed martial artist amongst the group of newcomers looked over at them. He smiled as he pointed a finger at them and hooked it in a come here gesture, almost making them faint from fear. Damn. Did he hear our sound transmission? No way. Calm down. When has it been easy to hear true essence sound transmission? Several martial artists paled. They began to walk towards Imperial Prince Naki with some trepidation. The lot of you, I want to ask you something. The two that left behind their names on the Emperor Stone, was it a man and a woman? Naki asked. The martial artists that were questioned immediately nodded. They told Imperial Prince Naki what they knew about the couple's appearance. The young man had a yellow complexion and his looks were ordinary. Imperial Prince Naki traced his chin. This description clearly didn't match with Lin Ming, but there was always the possibility that he had used an appearance-changing technique. For someone like Lin Ming who had such a sensitive status, doing so would allow him to travel through the Azura Road in a much safer manner. Millimeter, very good. Now all of you can screw off. Imperial Prince Naki demonically grinned. With a sudden punch of his fists, a crazy surge of astral essence erupted, recklessly impacting outwards. As this astral essence crashed into the martial artists, they shook and cried out in pain as they were sent flying away. Rumble, rumble, rumble. 3 people landed against giant boulders and broke them into pieces upon impact. They were wounded all over, continuously throwing up blood. Uyak. The martial artists crawled up to their feet, continuing to vomit blood with bits of their organs mixed within it. Imperial Prince Naki only sneered as he saw this. What were you all talking about just now? Don't you understand that loose tongues lead to trouble? Imperial Prince Naki's words caused all the surrounding martial artists to fall silent. In fact, the people who were speaking amongst themselves were more than those 3 still crawling up on their bellies. Most of the people here still thought it was nothing more than a dream for Imperial Prince Naki to perfectly leave his name upon the Emperor Stone. Now that they saw what a tragic state those 3 martial artists had ended up in, all of them were secretly rejoicing that they hadn't had the bad luck to be chosen. In truth, Imperial Prince Naki hadn't heard what these people were speaking about in true essence sound transmissions, he simply didn't have the ability to do so. But just by looking at the mocking and disdainful glances everyone was sending his way, he could approximate what they were speaking about. In particular, the astonished looks on their faces as he called them out confirmed this. Lowlord, please forgive this lowly one. This lowly one had eyes but couldn't see Mount Tai. Please treat us like a fart and ignore us. Although several martial artists hated Naki to the extreme, they had no choice but to beg for mercy. As people who survived in the Azura Road, they knew when they had to lower their heads, otherwise they would have died a long time ago. Rejoice that I don't want to waste my time killing you all. I will forgive your dog lives because I want you all to look and personally see just how shallow your experience is. As Naki spoke, he turned his gaze to Precipice Cliff. As he looked upwards, he could see the Emperor Stone. Then, a smile appeared on his lips. He had just thought of an excellent idea. Mr. Jew, I heard leaving a name upon the Emperor Stone is equal to obtaining the approval of all the outstanding heroic young elites of the past and even obtaining the support of their destiny. Is that true? The old world king near Naki respectfully replied, that is what it is reported to be like. Millimeter, very good. Then if that's the case, before I leave behind my name I will destroy the 2 characters they left and leave my own name in their positions. As Naki spoke, a fiendish smile lit up his face. If one could leave marks on the Emperor Stone, then one could naturally also ruin the marks left behind by others. Of course, doing this was several times more difficult. My road of becoming a great emperor will start here. As Naki spoke, his body soared upwards. His movements were smooth and elegant, like a piece of cloud being blown upwards by the wind. The pressure that surrounded Precipice Cliff wasn't able to affect Imperial Prince Naki at all. Awesome. His Highness is so fierce. Many martial artists cheered from the base of Precipice Cliff, obsequiousness thick in their voices. It had to be known that Imperial Prince Naki was someone who would become at least an extreme Empyrean in the future, and he even had a chance of becoming a true divinity. In the Good Fortune Holy Land, even the statuses of great world kings were far lower than his own. Imperial Prince Naki shot upwards like an ascending meteor. He had already flown 30 miles high. The pressure here still wasn't able to hinder his movements. With a smile on his face, he easily broke through 33 miles. It was only at this time that Naki felt a considerable amount of pressure. Now it's getting interesting. Naki smiled. 34 miles, 35 miles, he soon rushed to the height where the Emperor Stone was. But here, the pressure suddenly rose astronomically. Millimeter. Naki frowned. The pressure of the Emperor Stone had suddenly increased by several times. Pop, 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 pop. Naki's joints emitted explosive popping sounds. He was using the Saint race's body metamorphosis. However, the higher he went, the more terrifyingly fast the pressure increased. This was a nearly exponential growth. As he flew to the center of the Emperor Stone, Naki had no choice but to use his second body metamorphosis. Curved horns jutted out from his head and a pair of demon wings unfurled from his back. The pressure here had already exceeded his expectations. This pressure was left behind by numerous unrivaled geniuses of the last several hundred millions of years that had carved their name onto the Emperor Stone. This included the auras of Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. The aura that they left within the Emperor Stone also became a part of the pressure. What is this? Naki's complexion immediately changed. Pressure fell like a torrential storm all over his body. He could even feel that he was nearing his limit. This was especially true for Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's auras. Because they had just left behind their names, the pressure from their auras was extremely strong. Naki could even faintly feel the power that belonged to Lin Ming. Is it really him? Naki grit his teeth and forcefully impacted upwards. He never thought that after such a short period of time, he would be using this sort of method to compete with Lin Ming. The flavor of Lin Ming's aura was as heavy as grand mist energy. As it covered his body, it felt like a 100,000-foot-high mountain was pressing down on him, crushing him. This was an extremely horrifying weight. As for Xiao Moxian's aura, it was slightly lighter, but lighter didn't mean it was easier to withstand. As her aura covered him, it was like 10,000 flames ignited throughout his body, causing him to be racked with agony. At this time, Naki was only 200 to 300 feet from the highest point of the Emperor Stone. But this 200 to 300 feet had become a nearly insurmountable moat. If he wanted to leave behind his name at this height, it would still be easy for Naki to do so. However, he had bravely boasted in front of everyone and wasn't willing to take back his words in embarrassment and shame. He summoned up more astral essence, forcefully pushing himself up another 100 feet. Imperial Prince stepped on the Emperor Stone for leverage. But every time he did, all the flesh and blood in his body seemed as if it would rupture. His blood wildly tumbled in his body, making him feel like he was going to explode into a puddle of goo at any moment. Naki grit his teeth and shot up another 100 feet. Pa pa pa. Blood vessels burst open on Naki's arms and wings. His body shook and blood started leaking from the corners of his mouth. How could this be? Naki wasn't convinced. It was fine if Lin Ming did it alone, but even that woman Xiao Moxian had left behind her name on the crown of the Emperor Stone. Now, he couldn't do the same. Looking upwards at the top of the Emperor Stone, the Lin and Xian characters hung high above him, aloof and distant, their strokes smooth and forceful. When he looked up at these characters from the base of Precipice Cliff, Naki had never felt such a distance between them. But now, he wasn't able to overtake these last 100 feet. Chapter 1465, Heaven Devil City. Chapter 1465, Heaven Devil City. Naki wished with all his soul that he could ruin those two characters, but the moment he was only 200 to 300 feet from reaching the peak of the Emperor Stone, his mortal body had reached its limits. Many of his blood vessels had burst apart. Bang! Naki reluctantly punched outwards, attacking through space to strike the Lin character on the Emperor Stone. However, he had very little strength remaining to begin with, and underneath the suppressive pressure of the Emperor Stone, his attack diminished to nearly nothing. He simply wasn't able to mar the Emperor Stone at all. That Lin character's aura remained as swift and fierce as before, looking down at him from its unharmed perfection as if it were taunting his own incompetence. Your Highness, don't force yourself. At the base of Precipice Cliff, the old saint man shouted out anxiously. Everyone could see that Naki had reached his limit. It was impossible for him to reach the top of the Emperor Stone. Many people had a taunting look on their faces. Naki was less than 200 feet away from reaching the top of the Emperor Stone. To anyone else, this would have been a result to be proud of, but when this result was combined with his previous words, it actually caused people to want to mock him. To think he wanted to destroy the characters left behind by that man and woman and leave behind his own. Just who the hell does he think he is? Those two were true monstrous geniuses that had reached the limits of potential. Normally, even an extreme Empyrean descendant couldn't hope to reach the peak of the Emperor Stone. Desperately persisting just because he wants to save face is simply a death wish. I want to see just how he ends up. Sure, stop using sound transmissions. If you're not careful, they'll notice you. Several martial artists were using sound transmissions to quietly discuss what was happening. Currently, Imperial Prince Naki was only 10 feet from reaching the top of the Emperor Stone. However, all of his blood was nearly stagnant. He had reached his absolute limit. How could it be like this? Imperial Prince Naki felt a deep shame. He didn't think that he was weaker than Lin Ming. In fact, during their battle at the Chaotic Blood Continent, he hadn't truly lost to Lin Ming. Yet now, on the Emperor Stone, he was completely unable to compare. This meant that although his strength wasn't inferior to Lin Ming's, his potential was actually extremely far off. My potential is worse than his. Imperial Prince Naki couldn't accept this. Underneath Precipice Cliff, that old man Mr. Jew heaved a deep sigh. In the battle of the Chaotic Blood Continent, Naki and Lin Ming were nearly the same. Because their strength was close, this caused everyone to overlook something. It was that Naki had been at the late Saint Transformation Realm, but Lin Ming was only at the middle Divine Transformation Realm. Lin Ming had leapt up a small boundary to suppress Imperial Prince Naki. To extreme geniuses, overcoming a small boundary to fight was as easy as drinking water. But when this small boundary was between peak martial artists, both of them unrivaled geniuses of their generation, then that was truly terrifying. Every time a peak genius rose a small boundary in their cultivation, their strength would experience a massive increase. This Lin Ming is indeed a horrifying person. But luckily my saint race will launch a full-on invasion of the divine realm before long. He will not have the space to grow, otherwise if he did, he might become a character like Empyrean Divine Seal of 3-6 billion years ago. As Mr. Jew was thinking about this, he felt that it was prudent to kill off Lin Ming as soon as possible. To cull the weeds he needed to destroy the roots. And at this time, on the Emperor Stone, Naki was finally unable to continue. The closer he reached to the top, the more terrifying the pressure became. Although this was only a minor 10-foot distance, it was as great as the earth and heavens. The opportunity to challenge the Emperor Stone only came once in a lifetime. Once he failed, his mission badge would break apart. Naki knew that reaching the top of the Emperor Stone was no longer possible. With a raging hatred simmering in his eyes, he struck out a claw 8 feet from the top. Catcher! With an explosive sound, Naki tore out a chunk of stone. This last claw strike comprised all of Naki's remaining energy. After this strike, he was no longer able to support himself. His body plummeted straight down like a broken kite. Who? Mr. Ju flew up high to grab the severely wounded Naki. As he looked up to look at the mark Naki left behind, Mr. Ju shook his head. Naki's last claw strike had left behind a 3-inch long mark. But in terms of depth, it was no deeper than the marks left behind by monster Prince Juyu. And beyond that, this mark was extremely rough. One could barely make out the symbol of the saint race, and this symbol didn't contain any concepts at all. This was because Naki was already completely exhausted, a lamp without oil, thus he didn't have the ability to leave behind any concepts. If Naki hadn't insisted on trying to forcefully push himself up the last 100 feet of the Emperor Stone, then he could have left behind a perfect mark. But now, the mark he left behind was no different from one that a dog would leave. Beside Mr. Ju, the other saint disciples were also looking at each other in disappointment. None of them knew what to say. And not too far away, the other martial artists had also quietly departed. They were afraid that Imperial Prince Naki would take out his anger on them in a fit of indignant shame after he recovered. Rest for a moment and then we'll embark deeper into the Great Desolate. Mr. Ju issued an order. As he did so, a cold brightness shined in his eyes. He was wondering just how he could assassinate Lin Ming. In the vast expanse of the Great Desolate, there was a 10,000-foot high precipice. This precipice continued for several hundred miles, as sharp and steep as if someone had carved it with a saber. Above this precipice towered a grand and magnificent city. The city walls themselves were 1,000 feet high and held together with incomparably firm array formations. Looking from afar, it looked like a mountain range hidden in the horizon. The wonders of this city left one shocked with awe. This city was Heaven Devil City. Heaven Devil City was over 10 times larger than the City of Discord and also the largest city on the edge of the Great Desolate. Many martial artists who planned to participate in the trials in the Great Desolate stopped here. Because of the constant stream of people, Heaven Devil City was always bustling. Lin Ming and his group walked down the streets of Heaven Devil City. Both sides of the streets were lined with a variety of shops. The martial artists that walked down the roads were mostly youths. Moreover, each one had a solid foundation with extraordinary skill. They were all heroic young elites. This was also well within reason. After all, whether it was the martial artists who came here to adventure in the Great Desolate or the people who lived in Heaven Devil City, they needed the ability to face the ancient vicious beasts that surrounded the city. Otherwise, they would end up as nothing but food for those vicious beasts. This was originally a land where powerhouses gathered. In addition to the constant slaughter that occurred year-round, the strong survived and the weak were continuously weeded out. In terms of average quality, Heaven Devil City far surpassed the other cities on the outer edge of the Azura Road. Xiao Moxian was extremely inquisitive as she walked into the city. This was a scene she hadn't seen before in the Divine Realm. In the Divine Realm, masters were normally gathered in large sects and holy lands. In the cities, there were usually only low-level martial artists. After all, a city was a place where one lived, and masters would usually go into their sect to cultivate in seclusion. But the Azura Road was different. Here, most martial artists came to engage in life or death battles and enter challenging smelting trials. Those that established sects to cultivate were instead in the minority. Master, if you wish to find information, you can go to Heaven's Secret. Heaven's Secret is an extremely renowned intelligence network that operates on the edge of the Azura Road. As long as you have sufficient wealth, you can find out a great deal of secret news. Heaven's Secret. There's no need to hurry. Information about the map in the Emperor Jade shouldn't be directly inquired into. It needs to be separately investigated. Lin Ming already made his plans. He would split the information of the Emperor Jade into a dozen-plus pieces and slowly investigate it. Chapter 1466, Tragic Death Valley. Chapter 1466, Tragic Death Valley. After Lin Ming arrived at Heaven Devil City, he didn't immediately inquire for information on the Emperor Jade. Rather, he went to Heaven Devil City's Black God Fort to look at the missions within. Every city in the Azura Road had correspondingly different missions. After completing these missions, one could obtain God runes as a result. Lin Ming had already experienced the wondrous effects of high-grade God runes. With such an opportunity for more in front of him, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Heaven Devil City was established over a massive area. From the point where Lin Ming entered the southern city gates, he was several hundred miles away from Black God Fort, which was near the northern city gates. Lin Ming didn't fly these several hundred miles. Instead, he walked the entire route. As they continued through, Lin Ming discovered that the closer he neared the northern gates, the more solemn and noble the architecture became. There was even a faint killing intent all around. At the southern gates, both sides of the streets were lined with shops and bustling with many people. It was lively and prosperous. But near the northern gates, these sorts of shops, restaurants, and hotels had disappeared. All of these structures were replaced by fortresses. These fortresses were built with large and heavy grey rocks. These rocks were covered with mottled dark red traces, clearly left behind by weapons or claws. Lin Ming could even faintly smell the scent of blood here, as if this entire area was an Azura battlefield. These buildings are all built with heavenly limestone and fused together with the essence of dark steel iron, making it extremely firm. Even so, this stone has been made into such an appearance as if it were struck constantly with swords and sabers. Could there be frequent battles in the northern city area? Xiao Moxian asked from beside Lin Ming, a bit surprised. At this time, Lin Ming had already obtained the answer from Soul White. He said, Heaven Devil City faces the endless great desolate, and there are endless numbers of ancient vicious beasts that occupy the boundless wild. Every few years there is likely some event where vicious beast waves lay siege to the city. The southern city faces the cliff, so the northern side is where the battlefield is. As Lin Ming explained all of this, Xiao Moxian looked at him with surprise. How did you know that? Lin Ming rubbed his nose, not explaining. Beside him, Monster Prince Juyu snorted in disdain. He is a native martial artist of the Azura Road, so it isn't anything at all for him to know this. It's not like it's anything new. Xiao Moxian chuckled once before not speaking further. The three of them soon arrived at Heaven Devil City's Black God Fort. Before they entered Heaven Devil City, they had changed their appearances once more. This was to prevent any of those ambitious people at Precipice Cliff tracking them and causing further trouble. Heaven Devil City's Black God Fort was several times larger than the one in the City of Discord, and the martial artists here were also of a higher caliber. In the City of Discord there were many life-destruction martial artists. But here, one rarely saw even divine sea martial artists. And even if one did see them, they were often the staff of Black God Fort who belonged to the common people of Heaven Devil City. Those who had the daring to adventure deep into the Great Desolate were mostly divine lords or above. Lin Ming stepped up to the mission board. This mission board was the same as the one in the City of Discord. The various missions were listed along with a price tag. If one had origin energy runes, they could trade them for a mission badge. However, what surprised Lin Ming was that there were 2 rare Blue Soul level missions, and these 2 missions only needed a small number of origin energy runes to purchase. Moreover, although they had hung on the mission board for some time now, there were very few people who asked about them. Millimeter? How peculiar. Are these missions extremely difficult? Lin Ming traced his chin. He read over the content of the 2 mission badges. The first rare Blue Soul level mission was to enter God Burying Ridge and obtain a God Burying Stone. At that time, the God Burying Stone would fuse together with the mission badge and one could obtain a God Rune as a result. The second mission was to hunt down 3,600 high-level vicious beasts within 3 years. The mission badge would absorb the monster energy of these vicious beasts. After fully killing them, one would also receive a God Rune as a reward. If over 3 years passed, then the mission would fail. The difficulty of the second mission was easily understandable. High-level vicious beasts were much stronger than ordinary divine sea martial artists, and to kill 3,600 beasts in 3 years meant to kill at least 3 of them each day. There were many middle and late divine sea martial artists that came to adventure in Heaven Devil City, and for them this mission would be nearly impossible to complete. As for the first mission, that was simply to enter God Burying Ridge and obtain a God Burying Stone. The difficulties and mysteries of this mission were naturally located in God Burying Ridge. What sort of place was that? Reporting to Master, this old servant has only faintly heard of God Burying Ridge before. However, I am not too sure of the details. Although Solwhite had lived in the Azura Road for a long time, that didn't mean he knew everything. The Great Desolate contained numerous secrets to begin with, and Solwhite's strength was originally far too lacking to come adventuring in Heaven Devil City, thus he didn't know much about this area. God-Burying Ridge seems like it would be very fun to go to. Xiao Moxian was a young girl who didn't fear the heavens or earth at all. The more mysterious and spooky a place was, the more it aroused her interest. As for Monster Prince Duyu, he had an extremely ugly complexion. This sort of place was obviously extremely dangerous. If he were to rashly go there with Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, then he would lose his life if he wasn't careful. Lin Ming inquired about the situation of God-Burying Ridge towards the Black God Fort staff member responsible for issuing the mission badges. This staff member was an old imp man. As this old imp listened to Lin Ming's question, he was clearly impatient. After all, Lin Ming only had a late divine transformation cultivation. Going to God-Burying Range was the same as a death wish to him. The old imp simply didn't want to bother with this little junior who was pestering him with questions out of boredom. However, this was his duty here, thus he reluctantly threw a jade slip towards Lin Ming that contained a brief introduction of God-Burying Ridge. Lin Ming sank his divine sense into the jade slip, soon finding the information he wanted. God-Burying Ridge was an area that spanned a radius of tens of thousands of miles. This was a danger zone that had existed since time immemorial, and countless rumors had leaked out over the last several 100 million years. If an ordinary martial artist were to enter, there was basically no path for them to return. Even for peak geniuses, chances were higher that they would end up dead than surviving that dangerous land. And within the center of God-Burying Ridge was a red mountain range. Within this mountain range was an unfathomably deep valley called Tragic Death Valley. The reason this valley had this name was because out of all those who had ever been seen entering, no one had ever emerged. A tragic death, a death in vain. The meaning of Tragic Death Valley was that those who entered would die without any meaning or value at all. There were many mystic realms where one had 9 chances of death and 1 chance of survival, but if one safely emerged, chances were they would obtain a massive lucky chance. However, Tragic Death Valley was different. There were no known lucky chances within Tragic Death Valley. Tragic Death Valley was a place where people entered but never emerged. It was an absolute death zone with no hope at all. In the rumors that were passed down for several tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of years, it was said that several Empyreans died in Tragic Death Valley. Tragic Death Valley was one of the most famous danger zones in the entire Azura Road, because it was an absolute death zone. Even Empyreans died there. Lin Ming asked, his mouth agape. He didn't know how many Empyreans there were in the Azura Road, but if it was similar to the Divine Realm then there would be several hundred of them. Every Empyrean was a peak genius that had massive destinies gathered upon their bodies. They were all outstanding individuals that had stepped over the bones of countless other martial artists in order to complete their own road to becoming an Empyrean. Such a person could not be underestimated. Once a martial artist became an Empyrean, they would rarely encounter fatal disasters in their remaining long lives. But now, Lin Ming learned from this jade slip that many Empyreans perished in Tragic Death Valley. This sounded like a bedtime folk tale. Empyreans died there. Even the playful Xiao Moxian, who didn't fear anything, was still shocked silly. This was a place where even Empyreans died. It meant that no matter how talented one was, no matter how great of a heroic young elite they were, or even if they were a first-class martial artist like the Good Fortune Saint Sun, they were still nothing but a joke in front of Tragic Death Valley. This also meant that Tragic Death Valley was a forbidden zone that no one could enter. Lin Ming thought for a moment and then said, "We definitely cannot go to this Tragic Death Valley. Even if the rumors are exaggerated and even if Empyreans didn't perish within, it still isn't a place where we can survive. As for the surrounding God-Burying Ridge around Tragic Death Valley, that is still a place where we can go. Of course, we'll have to make arrangements and think of a plan beforehand." The dangers of God-Burying Ridge were much lesser. According to the Jade Slip, God-Burying Ridge was a place where ordinary martial artists would die without a doubt and where peak geniuses would end up more unlucky than lucky. Lin Ming firmly believed that whether it was him or Xiao Moxian, they couldn't be described as mere peak geniuses. If they really did die in God-burying Ridge, then this mission was too abnormal. It was simply sending any and all heroic young elites to their deaths. You want to go to God-burying Ridge? Monster Prince Juyu's complexion sank as he heard Lin Ming's words. He simply didn't want to go to such a dangerous place. If he was together with Lin Ming, then he would become a lightning rod that attracted all the bad luck onto himself. He no longer had the heart to continue with the Azura Road smelting trial. At the very least, he didn't want to continue onwards with Lin Ming. Don't joke with me. Didn't you read the Jade Slip? It said that this is a place where even Empyreans die. If you want to go die, then don't drag us along with you. Monster Prince Juyu said, wanting to pull up Xiao Moxian as a shield. But it was clear that he would be disappointed. Xiao Moxian jeered, can your courage be any tinier? The area where Empyreans die is Tragic Death Valley. It's good enough as long we don't go there. The Blue Soul level mission we have is only restricted to God-burying Ridge. As Xiao Moxian spoke, Monster Prince Juyu's complexion became increasingly ugly. He had actually been called lacking in courage by Xiao Moxian. This made him feel very aggrieved. He simply didn't want to go along with Lin Ming. At this time, Lin Ming wasn't bothering with the dispute occurring between Xiao Moxian and Monster Prince Juyu. He continued looking through the Jade Slip. There were unexpectedly maps that included God-burying Ridge and Tragic Death Valley. These maps were extremely rough. This was because in all of these years, no one had ever been able to fully explore God-burying Ridge, thus this map had been slowly pieced together and filled in with speculations over time before becoming barely legible. Of course, there were likely some people in Heaven Devil City that had detailed maps of God-burying Ridge. But one didn't need to be a genius to know that these maps would be expensive. They wouldn't be easily seen by others. Lin Ming was also only casually looking. He didn't expect that this map would have any great value. However, as Lin Ming continued looking, he began to frown. Some outlines of this map were clearly familiar. As Lin Ming recalled the lines within the Emperor Jade, he let out a long breath. He had come to a conclusion. The Great Desolate God Trove listed in the Emperor Jade had an 80 to 90% chance of being located in God-burying Ridge. There was also an enormous chance that it was located in Tragic Death Valley, the legendary zone of no return. Is the Great Desolate God Trove in Tragic Death Valley? Lin Ming was stunned. If even Empyreans couldn't return from this place, how could he possibly go? Chapter 1467, Fatty Jew. Chapter 1467, Fatty Jew. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, the Great Desolate God Trove was related to the Azura Road Master. And if this Tragic Death Valley could even bury Empyreans, then it was likely also related to the Azura Road Master. If so, one could imagine that the Great Desolate God Trove had an extremely high chance of being within Tragic Death Valley. This Tragic Death Valley is a land where even Empyreans perish. If I were to go, then all I can rely on is this Emperor Jade I obtained from the City of Discord. But whether or not this Emperor Jade is a death-sparing token is something I cannot confirm. Lin Ming believed that if he entered Tragic Death Valley, he would surely have a certain advantage over others. But how great this advantage would be was a mystery. The dangers inside Tragic Death Valley couldn't be taken as a joke. Lin Ming couldn't help but cast his sense into the magic cube space. There, the Emperor Jade calmly floated. Its entire body was a deep green and covered in faint lines that gathered into endlessly diverse patterns. These patterns were similar to maps of God-burying range. Lin Ming would absolutely go to Tragic Death Valley. To a martial artist, walking down the road of martial arts was originally choosing to struggle against the heavens every day. If there was the opportunity to obtain a heaven-shaking lucky chance, but he was too afraid to grab it because of his own fears and uncertainties, then he would be doomed to never accomplish anything. Lin Ming didn't want such a lucky chance to slip out from his hands. But the key was how should he go and at what time in his life should he go. For instance, after breaking through to the Divine Lord realm, he would be able to escape the grasp of a World King powerhouse. If he reached the Middle Divine Lord realm, he would have the strength to battle an ordinary World King. All sorts of thoughts raced through Lin Ming's mind. But at this time, the old imp in front of him was also growing impatient. "Hey, are the three of you done looking or not?" Stop blocking the way, there are still many trial challengers behind you waiting to accept a mission, the old imp said without a trace of humor in his tone. Lin Ming thought for a moment, not minding the harsh manner of the old imp. Instead, he took out a jade slip filled with origin energy runes from his spatial ring and handed it over to the old imp. Lin Ming had traded for these origin energy runes at the City of Discord using 9 sun jades. The old imp was surprised. He used his calloused hands to rub the jade slip and immediately estimated the amount of origin energy runes within it. This was definitely a considerable wealth. What do you want? I will take this mission. You can keep the remaining origin energy runes. I just want you to answer something for me. What should I pay attention to if I want to go to God Burying Ridge? As Lin Ming was speaking, the old imp lit up with a smile. He glanced around to see if anyone was looking at him and then put away the origin energy rune jade slip. He said, "You're a smart one. There are many adventurers that come here and, without knowing anything at all, rush towards God Burying Ridge to never return, instead dying there. Hehe, this is the perfect question that you asked me today. In God Burying Ridge, there are many things that you have to pay attention to, but only those with experience know about them. As for these experiences, they are gathered using the lives of those that have gone before. Those that know will not speak of it easily, and even if they do, they might not be clear about it. Go to the West City and look for Fatty Zhu Shiyang. If you put forth a high enough reward, he will lead you to God Burying Ridge. But, let me tell you something ahead of time. The total travel fee should be around 1,000,000 origin energy runes. If you pay more, then you'll have been tricked by him," the old imp said with blinking eyes. Lin Ming found this understandable. With a guide leading the way, it would definitely be much safer. Hey, do the 3 of you really want to go to God Burying Ridge? With your current cultivations, going to God Burying Ridge is the same as throwing a meat bun to a dog. You won't return at all, the old imp cautioned as he saw Lin Ming and the others about to walk away. He did so only because of the origin energy runes he was given. Lin Ming casually said, "Our team also has some masters, so you don't need to worry about us." Seeing Lin Ming about to leave Black God Fort, the old imp shook his head. Having masters to protect you is useless. That God Burying Ridge is far too strange. The dangers are specifically aimed at each person. Sometimes, even those with high cultivations will still die. Dangers specifically aimed at each person? Lin Ming's footsteps paused for a moment. "Thank you, I understand now." Then, he left Black God Fort with Xiao Moxian. As the old imp looked at Lin Ming's fading back, he shook his head. He knew that youngsters like them wouldn't listen to his advice. This year, how could there be so many people sending themselves to their deaths? The old imp rambled to himself. But at this time, Lin Ming and the others had already left Black God Fort. They planned to go to the West City and look for this Zhu Shiyang. "You're sure you want to go?" After Monster Prince Juyu left Black God Fort, he didn't continue walking. Instead, his gloomy eyes stared at Xiao Moxian. "Junior apprentice sister, do you really want to go to God Burying Ridge with some unknown fellow? That is an extremely dangerous place, so you should be afraid that others will harm you. Do you know that you have?" As Monster Prince Juyu spoke to her, he suddenly stopped. His malice-filled eyes turned towards Lin Ming, overflowing with killing intent. He simply hadn't used a true essence sound transmission to speak just then, and was plainly speaking in front of Lin Ming. It was clear that he was finally fed up with Lin Ming. Lin Ming knew what Monster Prince Juyu's final words were going to be. He was referring to her phoenix bloodline. She possessed the flesh and blood of a true god beast. In the past, within the ancient Phoenix clan, a single drop of phoenix blood essence was unimaginably valuable. From this alone, one could see how precious Xiao Moxian's body was. If someone with evil thoughts captured her, they could make good use of her. Whether it was using her body to cultivate, or using her for alchemy, one could obtain inestimable benefits. How can a man be so nagging? If you don't want to go, then you can stay in the city and wait for us to return. What Xiao Moxian couldn't stand the most was others continuously badgering her into changing her mind. During this trip through the Azura Road, Monster Prince Juyu had done so repeatedly. She was already sick and tired of him. Hearing Xiao Moxian's words, Monster Prince Juyu was angry to the point of vomiting blood, but he simply didn't have any means to change her mind. He continued to glare at Lin Ming. If looks could kill, Lin Ming would have died 100 times already. Monster Prince Juyu grit his teeth and ultimately decided to follow them. Old Blue's wounds weren't fully healed yet, and even if he were to recover, he still needed to undo the tracking rune on him. For a time, he couldn't be counted on to provide any help. If he were to lose Xiao Moxian and return himself, there was no way he could explain what happened. Moreover, he was worried about allowing Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian to go together. If something happened between the two of them, he would regret it for the rest of his life. I might not have an accident if I go to God Burying Ridge. Perhaps there might be a lucky chance for me also. Monster Prince Juyu thought, comforting himself. He followed behind Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, eventually arriving at the West City. After making several inquiries, they located that Zhu Xiang the old imp told them about. Zhu Xiang lived in a 3-story building. This building was formed with expensive array formations, and the back garden was planted with all sorts of spirit flowers. It looked beautiful and refined, as if spring was blossoming here all year round. This Zhu Xiang is quite wealthy. Lin Ming thought to himself. In Heaven Devil City, the value of land was high enough to give one a seizure. Back in the City of Discord, the price of a house was enough to cause an ordinary Divine Lord powerhouse to feel powerless and desperate, but in Heaven Devil City, land was several times more expensive. If this Zhu Xiang could live in a relatively large house in Heaven Devil City, this proved that he had some skills. It looks like this Zhu Xiang is fairly reliable. If he can gather such wealth, it is likely related to God Burying Ridge. If he really is familiar with the situation around God Burying Ridge, then whether it is as a guide, or hunting for treasures himself, he can likely make a fortune doing so. Lin Ming entered the small building. As he did so, array formations immediately appeared, blocking him. To Lin Ming, these array formations weren't anything at all. However, he still stood with manners and poise outside of the array formation, waiting for the master of the house to come out. Soon, a fat man in a blue robe appeared at the entrance. This fellow was half a head shorter than Lin Ming, and his entire body was plump, brimming with health and vitality. His chins were pushed together and his 2 small and bright eyes looking at Lin Ming and the others, filled with happiness. "Are you here to discuss business?" "Millimeter. We want to go to God Burying Ridge." Lin Ming went straight to the point. "God Burying Ridge? Good. It seems that you little fellows are becoming increasingly brave. 3 divine transformation youths want to go to God Burying Ridge. Well, let me tell you ahead of time that I will only be guiding you there. Your life or death will be in your own hands." "I understand." Although Lin Ming had a rough map, he still didn't know which route to enter God Burying Ridge was the safest. Each person will be 2 million origin energy runes. If all 3 of you are going, then I'll give you a discount and charge you 5 million. Fatty Jew stretched out his palm and showed 5 thick and short fingers. 3 million, no more, no less. Lin Ming replied. Although he didn't care about an extra 2 million origin energy runes, he didn't want to put on a display of stupidity, otherwise others would treat him as a fool. At that time, they might try to deliberately trick him and lead him into some dangerous situation. Haha, it looks like you've already considered the price beforehand. After being exposed by Lin Ming, Fatty Jew laughed, not embarrassed at all. Deal. Chapter 1468, Encounter at the Gates. Chapter 1468, Encounter at the Gates. These people are also going to God Burying Ridge. A day later, Lin Ming was led by Fatty Jew into his house where there were 7 or 8 martial artists waiting. These people were mostly young, but 2 of them were middle-aged. Out of these people, 3 of them attracted Lin Ming's attention, 2 men and 1 woman. The woman had extremely bright eyes and she stood very high. Even when compared to Lin Ming, she was only a tad shorter. Her thighs were round and filled with potent power. She wore a short leather jerkin that exposed her flat belly and her large chest nearly exploded out of it. Her skin was pale and as bright as her eyes, and on her back she carried a case of javelins and tied on her fair and strong thighs was a sharp dagger. Javelins? Lin Ming was surprised. This was an extremely strange and rare weapon type. Normally, a martial artist would carefully craft a single weapon instead of a set of them. This woman had an early Divine Lord cultivation. And beside this woman was a man at the middle Divine Lord realm. He seemed to be a companion of this woman. He had a large build with a big cloak thrown over his shoulder. A black heavy sword hung on his back. This heavy sword was taller than an adult human and as wide as half a door. It looked extremely heavy. Once this heavy sword was slashed out, the might behind it could be imagined. Moreover, what astonished Lin Ming the most was that this man and woman had extremely powerful bodies, faintly exuding the atmosphere of astral essence. These martial artists both dual cultivated body and energy, and Lin Ming could even feel a faint yet familiar aura from them. Millimeter? This is the dragon race bloodline? Lin Ming was slightly amazed. If God-Beast bloodline did not originate from the same source, then it would be very difficult to sense. Before, Lin Ming had swallowed the bone of an azure dragon. Now he was able to feel a faint resonance with the man and woman in front of him, leaving him surprised. This man and woman seemed to be owners of a dragon race bloodline. They should be geniuses of some universe's monster race. Lin Ming guessed. In the 33-layered heavens, the monster race could be considered a very large and separated tribe. The monster races of many other universes were often far stronger than the monster race of the divine realm. As Lin Ming was observing this man and woman, they were also observing him. They were from the Dragontongue family, and the Dragontongue family did possess the bloodline of a true dragon. This sort of bloodline was inherited within their very bones. Even after multiple generations, their bloodline still wouldn't diminish. Of course, when compared to a monstrous genius like Xiao Moxian, whose mother was a true god-beast, they were far from being able to match up to her. That man also has the aura of dragon blood within him. The leather-armored woman said with a true essence sound transmission. It's the blood of an azure dragon. He should also have noticed us. However, this person's azure dragon bloodline purity is limited. He should have encountered some lucky chance and managed to transplant it post-birth. This sort of bloodline can't compare to ours. Yes, but such lucky chances are extremely wonderful for ordinary people, thus his foundation is also very solid. Moreover, he seems to dual cultivate body and energy just like we do. He should have his own skills, and if he dares go to God-Burying Ridge at the Divine Transformation Realm, then he is confident in them too. God-Burying Ridge had a grim and ominous reputation, one that was well deserved. Even these two dragon siblings only dared to go to God-Burying Ridge after reaching the Divine Lord realm. If a Divine Transformation Realm martial artist were to go, they had to have absolute confidence in their strength, otherwise they would only be idiots. Besides these two dragon siblings, there was also a youth in a black tight-fitting outfit that caught Lin Ming's attention. This youth looked to be around 15 to 16 years old, and his hands and feet were wrapped with thick bandages. He had black hair and held a long sword in his hands as he sat in a corner of the house. Where he sat, a faint force field emitted from him, making it seem as if he was hidden in the dark. If an ordinary person were to step into this room, it would be easy to ignore him, not sensing him at all. This person clearly excelled at concealing himself. He was likely some sort of incredible assassin. So many masters, this really is a den of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Lin Ming silently appraised. Martial artists that came to the Great Desolate were all outstanding individuals to begin with, and those that dared to take missions in God-Burying Ridge were the most amazing of all of them. Are these three little fellows also joining? From the corner of the room, a voice suddenly sounded out. The one speaking was a middle-aged man in silk robes. His eyes were shaped like triangles and his eyebrows hung downwards. He seemed to be a very strong and bold character. This person had a half-step Holy Lord cultivation. Besides Fatty Jew, he had the highest cultivation here. However, in Lin Ming's eyes, his strength was only so. He wasn't young anymore. Compared to the dragon siblings, he was far inferior. That's right. What, are you worried that someone's going to drag you down? Fatty Jew smiled as he spoke, his eyes curving into two little crescent moons. The middle-aged man grunted. Although he didn't state his meaning, it was obvious. Lin Ming didn't respond at all, But Xiao Moxian wasn't willing to allow this insult to pass. "Hey Triangle Eyes, who do you think you are speaking to? Maybe you'll be the one to hold everyone back." Xiao Moxian had never been someone willing to freely suffer a loss. She immediately poked at the middle-aged man with her words. The middle-aged man flew into a rage. Just as he was about to do something, Fatty Jew suddenly stepped forwards and blocked the two from fighting. "Everyone, please give me some face and calm down. Now that you are all in my team, you will have to listen to my orders. If something like this were to happen in God-Burying Ridge and you do not listen to my orders, then I shall have to kick you from the team so you don't get everyone else killed." As Fatty Jew was speaking, his voice began to turn icy. For this person to survive in a den of powerhouses like Heaven Devil City, he certainly wasn't as harmless as his appearance suggested. The middle-aged man coldly humphed and no longer spoke. "Everyone is here, let's leave then." Fatty Jew waved his hand. Like this, the team of 12 people set out towards God-Burying Ridge. And at the same time, just outside of Heaven Devil City, a similar team of people had just entered city. The one leading them was a white-robed youth that rode atop a large horned wolf. The youth said to the old man beside him, "Mr. Jew, your world detection art can't be maintained forever. I fear it won't be easy finding that boy in a place as large as Heaven Devil City, especially if he's using an appearance transforming technique." This white-robed youth was Naki. After he entered Heaven Devil City, he constantly inspected everywhere around him, hoping to catch Lin Ming's trail. It's truly not easy at all. That little beast is a crafty one. We cannot be too noticeable in our actions, otherwise he will leave Heaven Devil City early and deliberately hide himself. I have confidence that when I find his scent I will be able to see through that little beast's disguise, no matter what he tries. As Mr. Jew spoke, his eyes were closed in meditation. In order to continue using the world detection art, he lowered the usage of all other energies to a minimum. The principle behind this technique was to rely on the memory of a person's aura to search for that person in an area of dozens of miles. Even if they used an appearance-changing technique, he could still see through them. Millimeter, since Mr. Jew says that, I can feel at ease. When I find that little brat, hey, Naki cruelly smiled, killing intent filling his eyes. When that time comes, don't interfere, I will deal with him alone. I will return double the shame that I felt in the battle at the chaotic blood continent. Mr. Jew, all you need to do is prevent him from escaping. Once I defeat him, I will waste away all his martial arts but let him keep his pathetic life. Then, I will bring him back to the saint race to make into medicine. His mortal body should be at sufficient standards as an alchemy ingredient. Haha, well said, Your Highness. At that time, that will surely be a great merit. Your Highness' status in our race will rise even further in the future. Some people flattered from all around. Naki only coldly smiled. In truth, he didn't have full confidence in defeating Lin Ming. But now, he had especially prepared a card to deal with Lin Ming. Naki continued to think of ways to use Lin Ming's mortal body as well as how to use all the advantages and merits he would gain from killing Lin Ming to further advance his status in the saint race. But at this time, he completely failed to realize that a group of modest-looking martial artists had walked towards his direction. This team of martial artists had 12 people. It was Fatty Jew's team. We are about to leave the city gates. After we leave the city gates, everyone must listen to my command. This is a must, remember it. If you do not want to follow my rules, then do not enter my team. Fatty Jew continued to hammer in this point. There were many impatient responses. These people were all arrogant geniuses of their generation, so how could they be willing to obey others? As Lin Ming saw Fatty Jew's gaze sweep over him, he lightly nodded in return. At this moment, his expression froze. He saw a group of martial artists at the city gates. This group had over 20 people, both men and women, old and young. Some of them were dressed like underlings, and there were 3 or 4 people leading them. These people all rode vicious beasts that they had tamed in the Great Desolate. Their auras were powerful and their foundations were solid. And as Lin Ming saw them, his heart turned cold. Among this group of people was someone he recognized, Imperial Prince Naki. Chapter 1469, Entering God-Burying Ridge. Chapter 1469, Entering God-Burying Ridge. Naki, he also came to adventure through the Azura Road? Lin Ming sucked in a deep breath. However, this was also well within reason. At the time of their battle, Naki was in his best cultivation period to journey through the Azura Road, so it wasn't strange for him to come here. Even humanity's Dragon Fang, Han Kai, and the others should also be at the Azura Road. However, Lin Ming simply hadn't met them yet. Beside Naki was also an old man. This old man's eyes were closed tight, with rapid movements occurring behind his eyelids as if he were using some arcane technique. Lin Ming's eyes widened. He could faintly sense countless threads of divine sense spread out to cover a distance of dozens of miles. This caused Lin Ming to feel a sense of dread. This old man had a World King cultivation, and there were two other middle-aged people near him that were half-step World Kings. Naki, did he realize that I'm here? Lin Ming began to ponder past events. He had left behind the Lin character upon the Emperor Stone, and if Naki also went there then he might have made that association. Although the saints and humans had signed a temporary peace treaty that forbade them from recklessly slaughtering each other, there were still some limits to it. This treaty was restricted to the scope of the divine realm. If it were in the Azura Road, then the saints were free to chase him down and it still wouldn't violate the terms of the treaty, and thus no one would need to worry about backlash from their heart demons. If Naki had truly guessed that he was in Heaven Devil City, he would inevitably do everything he could to hunt him. Maybe, just maybe that old World King man is using some secret technique to search for me, Lin Ming immediately thought. As Fatty Jew's group walked forwards, Lin Ming and Naki came nearer and nearer to each other. Naki rode a large horned wolf, his eyes casting all around with a superior attitude. In fact, within Heaven Devil City, Naki was a superior individual. Just Mr. Jew alone was enough to shock many people. Naki's vision swept over Lin Ming, but he didn't spare an extra glance towards him. Naki's eyes only paused on Fatty Jew's body for a brief moment before ignoring his troop. Beside Naki, Mr. Jew's eyes were closed as before. Occasionally he would form a few seals with his hands. These seals would spin up and dance in the air, looking extremely mysterious. Mr. Jew was searching for Lin Ming by using the aura that Lin Ming had left behind on the Emperor Stone. The world detection art was a secret technique that sensed someone based on the aura. It was a high-level tracking technique several times more accurate than using one's eyes. However, when Lin Ming and Naki crossed paths, Mr. Jew was still forming seals with his hands. There was a faint cracking sound as these seals constantly faded away in the wind. From beginning to end, he didn't open his eyes nor did he sense Lin Ming. Lin Ming remained as calm as before. His appearance-changing technique could change his appearance, aura, and soul fluctuations. Not even a great world king could see through his disguise. Lin Ming's only worry was that Monster Prince Juyu would betray him. Fortunately, Monster Prince Juyu simply didn't know who Naki was. Currently Monster Prince Juyu had a very grim expression as he worried over what would happen during the trip to God-Burying Ridge. Like this, Imperial Prince Naki and his group entered Heaven Devil City. As for Lin Ming and the others, they left Heaven Devil City with no accident at all. Imperial Prince Naki would never have imagined that he just passed by Lin Ming. Your Highness, where shall we head first? We'll go to Heaven Devil City's Black God Fort. There might be some clues we can find there. This boy Lin Ming, if he really did enter the Great Desolate, then Heaven Devil City is a stopping station that he cannot avoid. After entering Heaven Devil City, he should have gone to Black God Fort to search for missions he can complete to obtain God runes. We'll see if we can find him at Black God Fort. If we can't, then we'll look for other traces of him. Your Highness is too wise. Then, Imperial Prince Naki and his group walked towards Black God Fort. As for Lin Ming and the others, as soon as they left the city, all of them launched their movement techniques and flew off with lightning speed. The 12 of them flew for several quarter hours of time, passing over 10,000 miles. Only then did Fatty Jew slow down. We'll soon arrive at God-Burying Ridge. As Fatty Jew said this, the group slowly landed. Lin Ming looked ahead. In the horizon, he could see a long and meandering serpentine black mountain range. This mountain range emitted an ancient and desolate aura, making it seem very special. Lin Ming even discovered that the closer he approached God-burying ridge, the fewer vicious beasts there were. It seemed that the vicious beasts feared the aura of God-burying ridge, so they deliberately avoided it. "Hey, Fatty, do you know what sort of origin God-burying ridge has?" Xiao Moxian suddenly asked, curious. Many people also looked towards Fatty Ju, wanting to know what the history of God-burying ridge was. This sort of strange and menacing place was likely not naturally formed. Fatty Ju chuckled. After being directly called Fatty by Xiao Moxian, he wasn't angry or annoyed at all. It was a well-known nickname of his. "I don't know the origin of this place. I've only heard that God-burying ridge has already existed for over 10 billion years. Within that place, many evils lurk about. Upon entering, everyone needs to stay close to me and don't act out on your own. If you die, then there is nothing I can do to help you." Fatty Ju slapped his belly after he finished speaking, continuing to lead the way like a waddling penguin. Close behind Fatty Ju was Xiao Moxian. She had a relaxed and slightly excited expression on her face. This was in stark contrast to Monster Prince Juyu. From the moment he left the city gates he had remained utterly silent, and now, his face was so dark and gloomy that it seemed he would drip water. He could faintly feel that within this group of people, although he wasn't the weakest, he was in the lower middle reaches in terms of strength. Many of these people were inferior to him in talent, but their cultivation base was much higher than his. The only two people here with similar cultivations were Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, but those two were simply freakish abnormalities. Fatty Ju's pace was very slow. From noon to evening and then to night, they only traveled 100 to 200 miles. During this period of time, they didn't encounter anything at all. All that surrounded them were endless barren mountains and plains. There were very few plants and even the rocks were exposed and weather-beaten. "Fatty Ju, I think you are walking far too slowly. It's been a full day but we've only walked less than 200 miles. I've heard that this God-burying ridge extends for tens of thousands of miles. If this continues, won't it be several months before we reach the end?" The one who spoke was a Saint race youth. They were walking so slowly, and yet, let alone the legendary dangers that existed in this land, they didn't even see the shadow of a ghost. He was growing increasingly tired of journeying at such a slow pace. "You want to walk to the end? This is God-burying ridge. Going several thousand miles in and emerging alive is already your good fortune, and yet you still have the gall to say you want to walk to the end. It's as if you don't want to live," Fatty Ju bluntly said. The Saint youth frowned. After being rebuked like this, he was inevitably unhappy. "I'll say this politely, but we are your guests here. If we can join this team, that means that none of us are common mortals. Even those 3 divine transformation martial artists probably have some extraordinary background. I don't think you can afford to offend even the likes of them." "Hey, who are you talking about?" Xiao Moxian unhappily said after being classified as one of those 3 divine transformation martial artists. At this time, because of the appearance-changing technique she used, Xiao Moxian didn't seem cute or pure at all. The Saint youth simply didn't buy her act. He just snorted, no longer speaking. As the group continued forwards, Fatty Ju seemed to intentionally go against the young saint's complaints. Not only did he not increase his pace, but he even slowed down. In the previous 20 hours they had nearly crossed 200 miles. But in the following 8 to 10 hours, even though Fatty Ju led them all the way through dawn, they only managed to cross 40 to 50 miles. This was a pace even slower than mortals. Moreover, he would often lead the group around in large curving arcs. These arcs would often take over double the time of walking in a straight line. To a martial artist, this distance would only take the blink of an eye, but underneath the leadership of Fatty Ju, everyone sluggishly moved over the path like snails. This caused many people to feel morose. "Fatty Ju, why do you lead us in so many circles? If we continue like this we won't be able to find God-burying stones even in the next year." The Saint youth who complained before became increasingly impatient. This slow speed was simply far too outrageous, and he always felt that this Fatty Ju was messing around with them. Although there clearly weren't any dangers, he would still walk in a circle around random areas. Who knew whether or not these circular paths were necessary? It was as if Fatty Jew wanted to demonstrate his own special sense of the existing area and deliberately led them through long circling detours. This saint youth even began to suspect that Fatty Jew was a swindler, that he was working together with the staff of Black God Fort to trick money out of the trial challengers. In truth, this Fatty Jew was simply a nonsensical guide who knew nothing at all. I lead you in circles to avoid some possible danger zones. Although it can't be said that there are definitely dangers, the chances of dangers in those places are far higher than normal. It's better to be safe than sorry. Going a bit slower is far superior to losing your life. Fatty Jew patiently explained. However, the saint youth didn't believe this at all. You're the only one saying there are dangers. How do we know whether these danger zones are really danger zones? We've come this far and yet there hasn't even been any threat to us at all. As the saint youth spoke, Fatty Jew's complexion darkened. His voice was icy cold as he responded, "Once the dangers of God Burying Ridge appear, they will often take your life. If you want to curse yourself to death then that is fine, but don't bring your bad luck to our door." Fatty Jew's words contained a faint killing intent. The saint youth frowned but didn't speak further. "If you don't believe me then you don't need to follow me at all. You can walk your own path." Fatty Jew coldly tossed out these words before continuing forwards. His pace remained as slow as before and he would continue walking in circles occasionally. Lin Ming followed behind Fatty Jew, rubbing his chin. He also had the thought that Fatty Jew might have been working together with the old imp staff member from Black God Fort, but just from sensing the aura from Fatty Jew, he could feel this person wasn't simple at all. In short, he preferred to believe in Fatty Jew's credibility. Even if Fatty Jew was swindling them, he still had a certain understood into God Burying Ridge, otherwise, he would have died in God Burying Ridge long before he could trick people several times. The complaining saint youth grimaced, his expression changing several times. In the end, he didn't go off on his own and continued following Fatty Jew in his slow pace. The rumors of God Burying Ridge were far too fierce and far too dangerous. Even if this Fatty Jew was a mysterious con artist treating them all as fools, at least they had all still been safe until now. Chapter 1470, Strange Death. Chapter 1470, Strange Death. From noon to midnight, from midnight to noon, the skies above God Burying Ridge seemed forever covered by a faint fog, without a single ray of sunlight making it through. Here, ancient dark green rocks littered the land. These stones had experienced the river of endless years, as if the landscape of God Burying Ridge had never changed for the last several billions of years. The group of 12 people had already penetrated 300 to 400 miles deep into God Burying Ridge. Then, something finally occurred. The slow and steady Fatty Jew suddenly jumped up like a dog chasing a rabbit. His speed increased to incredible velocities and even the ground shook beneath him, causing everyone to be startled. Lin Ming reflexively jumped backwards. His right hand traced his spatial ring and the phoenix blood spear came flashing out. All this occurred in the blink of an eye. Beside Lin Ming, Xiao Moxian wasn't any slower. Her bloodline began to roil within her as she grasped her whip, ready to transform into her phoenix true form at any time. Lin Ming's first reaction was that Fatty Jew had encountered some sudden danger and he had decided to flee and leave them behind. However, what surprised Lin Ming was that even though all of this had occurred, the surroundings were still quiet. The wind blew at a low speed and the mountain stones remained as bleak and barren as before, as if nothing had occurred. As for that Fatty Jew, after jumping out several hundred feet he suddenly stopped. His right hand thrust out like an arrow and there was a light slapping sound as if he had struck something. Then, Fatty Jew bent over and picked something up. As he did, his round and tubby body seemed as if it was giving him a hard time in trying to bend over. After that, Fatty Jew walked back, his face flushed red with health. He held a red spirit grass in his hands. As he turned his palm, this spirit grass was received into his spatial ring. Haha, lucky, lucky. I've actually managed to pick up a blood-dripping orchid. I can trade it for quite a bit of money or I can even refine it into a pill. It's not bad either way. This blood-dripping orchid will try to dive into the ground and escape, so if you're not fast enough it will manage to flee. Fatty Jew casually said. But as he spoke, let alone the saint youth that had been complaining all this time. Even Lin Ming wasn't feeling all too well. This fellow, could he really be relied upon? It wasn't a problem for him to pick a spirit grass. After all, in these sorts of mystic realms, whoever discovered the treasure was the one who owned it. But before this, every step Fatty Jew took was careful and as slow as a snail. He had even said it was better to be safe than sorry, and going too fast could easily lead to death. But, when he discovered that spirit grass just now, he happily leapt forwards even faster than a rabbit, crossing hundreds of feet in an instant with no problem at all. "Are you fucking playing with us?" the saint youth violently shouted out in anger. Fatty Jew smirked, immediately responding, "If you don't believe me, you can leave by yourself. No one asked you to follow me. In fact, personally, I would rather a person like you leave early so you don't drag us into your vortex of bad luck." "What did you say?" the saint youth almost attacked, but at this time several other people persuaded him to calm down. "Consider this over. Don't fight here. Now that we're halfway there, there's no way you can leave by yourself. On the contrary, it will be extremely dangerous to go anywhere alone. No matter if we are being tricked or not, it's much safer if we are all together." The one who spoke was the older brother of the dragon siblings. In order to not offend Fatty Jew, he used a true essence sound transmission. "Humph." The saint youth coldly snorted, suppressing his anger. "Zhu Shiyang, I will remember your name. Do whatever you want. There are many people that already remember my name, so who cares if you do too." Fatty Jew hummed as he continued to lead the way. The 12 people continued to advance forwards. Fatty Jew was still as slow as before, as if he were challenging the saint youth's bottom line. However, this time, there were far fewer people complaining. Currently, many of them were spreading out their scents, thinking to find some of the precious medicinal herbs in God-burying Ridge. The blood-dripping orchid that Fatty Jew picked up just now was quite valuable. Even though these people came from decent backgrounds, they were still tempted. If they managed to pick up some heavenly materials, then that would still be a good lucky chance even if they didn't find any God-burying stones. After 10 miles of walking, the saint youth's heart suddenly stirred. Not too far away, there was a spirit grass growing beneath a large boulder. This spirit grass was only 3 inches high and there was a pigeon egg-sized fruit growing at the end. The entire fruit was blood red in color. "Is that a monster blood fruit?" The saint race was shocked. In the legends, when a monster beast with a royal bloodline died, such fruits would be bred from using their corpses as fertilizer. It wasn't only the saint youth that saw the monster blood fruit, but he was the fastest of those who did. He hurtled himself towards it. These several hundred feet passed instantly. "Stop." Fatty Jew's complexion rapidly changed. "Don't touch that fruit." Fatty Jew's voice and appearance were stern, but that saint youth only returned a contemptuous glance at him. "Are you stupid or sleepy? Do you think I am a 3-year-old child? You just want this monster blood fruit. If I believed you again, then I would be the idiot." As the saint youth spoke, he plucked the monster blood fruit. Lin Ming's pupils shrank as he saw this, all the muscles in his body tightening. The truth was that out of everyone here, he had been the first to discover the monster blood fruit because his divine sense was the most formidable out of everyone here. However, he didn't want a monster blood fruit so badly that he was willing to desperately rush out without regard for anything else. And more importantly, the moment he discovered the monster blood fruit, he also had a foreboding feeling pass through his heart. Now that he heard Fatty Jew shout out to stop, Lin Ming immediately raised his guard to full alert. And standing around Lin Ming, Xiao Moxian, the dragon siblings, and even that taciturn, 15 to 16-year-old looking black-clothed youth had also silently drawn out their weapons. The black-clothed youth's weapon looked like a saber. The blade was black and shining with a cold brilliance. This was because Fatty Jew's words had placed them all on alert. They would rather believe in potential dangers than be caught unprepared. However, that saint youth didn't seem to encounter any dangers. As he grasped the spirit grass, he loudly laughed. "Haha, this fruit is worth over 100 million and it often can't be found in any city. I just happened to be close to breaking through to the middle divine lord realm. Once I refine this fruit into a pill, it will greatly enhance my blood vitality. Awesome. Even if I don't obtain any god-burying stones during this trip into God-burying Ridge, I've more than recouped my losses. I've fucking had enough with this swindler tricking us all this way. I'm sick of his shit. As the Saint Youth was speaking, Lin Ming felt a chilling air crawl up from beneath his feet and shoot straight up his back. He saw an extremely strange and horrifying scene occur. The monster bloodfruit that the Saint Youth was holding in his hand suddenly stretched out a root hair to grip the Saint Youth's arm. Then, it began to wantonly absorb the blood essence in the Saint Youth's muscles. The Saint Youth's arm began to wither away at a visible speed, but the Saint Youth himself didn't seem to sense anything wrong. He still remained ecstatic from his find and glaring at Fatty Jew in triumphant disdain. Then again, I should also thank a useless swindler like you. Without you leading the way, I would not have picked this monster bloodfruit, ha ha ha. At this moment, the Saint Youth's self-pleased laughter was already standing in sharp contrast with the left half of his body that was completely decayed. This strange scene left a nearly unforgettable impression. There is no need to think about it, he is already dead. Fatty Jew's complexion was pale. There was no one else in the group that was gloating over the Saint Youth's misfortune either. Instead, it left them increasingly fearful of how dangerous this trip was. According to normal trends, they shouldn't have encountered such a strange existence at this distance. Did someone die? Why do you all have such expressions? The Saint Youth shouted out, panic beginning to rise in his voice as he saw the pity and panic in everyone's expressions as well as their guarded stances. A feeling of intense restlessness surged in his heart. What is going on? What are you looking at? A foreboding feeling appeared in his mind. Then, he turned his head to look at the left half of his body and saw the most terrifying scene of his life as well as the last scene of his life. His left half had completely rotten away, and things that looked like red roundworms were wriggling around in his flesh. This incomparably disgusting and horrifying scene caused him to cry out at the top of his lungs. However, just as his cry started, a cold light shimmered through the air and pierced through his throat. "Ca." With a light sound, blood splashed in the air. The Saint Youth's throat was stabbed through and his voice was immediately cut off. Lin Ming's eyes widened. The one who attacked was Fatty Jew. He could not be allowed to scream. It would lure other things here. We must leave here immediately or that thing will attack us too. As Fatty Jew spoke, he launched his movement technique and rushed deeper into God-burying Ridge. Lin Ming followed behind. The scene that just happened was shocking to the mind. This God-burying Ridge had strange things everywhere. The group of 11 people rushed forwards a dozen plus miles in a single go before stopping down. All of their complexions looked unwell as if they mourned over the loss of someone in their group. The tragic death of the Saint Youth just now had caused them to shake with fear. Even the normally flippant and happy Xiao Moxian had an unnatural expression. Just what was that? It was disgusting. I think we should turn back. The one who spoke was Monster Prince Juyu. Without a doubt, the one who had been impacted the most just now was him. He had secretly estimated the strength of that Saint Race youth who had just died. His final estimation was that he wasn't much stronger than that Saint Youth. If he were to have fought that Saint Youth, although he could have won, it would have been a difficult victory. If that Saint Youth had died so miserably, then if they had exchanged positions, he would have suffered the same fate. If you want to return, then return yourself. We have no plans of doing so. The one who spoke was the young girl that carried javelins, the young sister of the dragon siblings. As she looked at Monster Prince Juyu, her eyes were filled with disdain. This disdainful gaze left Monster Prince Juyu infuriated. He regretted his impulsive action that had led to him following Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian into this damned danger zone. Fuck, I hate meeting those brash idiots that think they are some big tiger. He died and nearly dragged us down with him. Fatty Jew foully cursed. Luckily, we didn't encounter any dangers when we left, nor did we deviate from the road I am familiar with. Fatty Jew looked all around. After determining their approximate position, he finally let out a sigh of relief. What killed him? Lin Ming suddenly asked. Chapter 1471, Old Enemy. Chapter 1471, Old Enemy. What Lin Ming cared for the most was how the Saint Youth had died. Even after searching through his memory, He couldn't think of any evil plant that could kill a divine Lord Realm genius in such a strange and quiet way that didn't even elicit a single reaction. Fatty Jew's head shook like a rattle. I have no idea. There is a 90% chance that this God-burying ridge is a Tao field left over by some extreme character of the past. This Tao field has nearly become its own self-contained and separated world. Moreover, it has existed for billions or even 10 billion years. Do you know what sort of concept that long of a time span is? A planet can spontaneously form life in billions of years and complete countless samsaras of species, much less something like this Tao field. Over the years, God-burying ridge has gathered countless types of mysterious energies, force fields, domains, and all other sorts of phenomena. It's incalculable just how many commoners, geniuses, powerhouses, mortals, vicious beasts, and demons have all died here. This separate world has already evolved into an unimaginably complex situation. If you see a plant, it might not be a plant, and if see you something alive, it might not be alive, so if you ask me a question, even I wouldn't know about it. As Fatty Jew spoke, Lin Ming was gravely startled. In truth, not to mention a place like the God-burying ridge which had been sealed up for billions of years, even if some poisonous insects were sealed into a jar, they would cannibalize each other until a mutated poisonous bug queen appeared. Currently, God-burying ridge was like a massive poisonous bug pot. Here, countless powerhouses of numerous races converged, as well as vicious beasts, monster beasts, ghosts, demons, spirits, and all sorts of existences. Over the billions of years, these existences swallowed each other, slaughtered each one, and constantly evolved all the while. It wasn't strange for some evil beings to grow out of all this chaos. Even Lin Ming's group of 12 people could only be considered poisonous insects in a poisonous bug pot. As for the saint youth who had died, he was the first to become fertilizer. At this time, in Heaven Devil City's Black God Fort, the old imp responsible for issuing mission badges was reclined on a chair. His two stubby legs were resting on a stool, as a completely satisfied expression crossed his face. He had already been resting for a good while this afternoon. Then, at this time, his eyes widened and he suddenly took his legs off his stool, standing upright. Not too far away he could see 3 saint race martial artists walking towards him. Among these 3 saint race martial artists, there was an old man whose cultivation he couldn't sense. The other 2 had a solid foundation with vibrant blood vitality. It was clear they were outstanding geniuses. Such people likely came from a great background, and these types of people like to be extravagant in their actions. Moreover, looking at the appearances of these people, it was clear they had just arrived at Heaven Devil City. Maybe they were trying to obtain some information from him. If so, that would be a good chance to earn some extra income. Several guests, are you here to look for missions? The old imp said, his face wrinkled with smiles. No. I want to ask you something. A few days ago, was there a divine transformation martial artist that accepted an extremely difficult mission? The person asking this question was precisely Imperial Prince Naki. In these past days, Naki and Mr. Jew had searched Heaven Devil City for Lin Ming, but still couldn't find any hints to his trail. Naki believed that Lin Ming hadn't stopped at Heaven Devil City but had directly left here to continue deeper into the Great Desolate. Or, Lin Ming could also have accepted some mission in Heaven Devil City and currently be completing it. Naki believed that the latter had a slightly higher possibility. If Lin Ming was on a mission, then he definitely would have chosen an extremely difficult one that far surpassed the limits of an ordinary divine transformation realm martial artist. If so, then the staff of Black God Fort would have a deep impression of this person. Naki believed this was the best possible way to find Lin Ming. The old imp turned his eyes, rubbing his hands together. Every day there are people accepting missions, it's hard for me to recall such specifics. Before the old imp finished speaking, one of Naki's subordinates tossed a jade slip filled with origin energy runes towards him. The old imp's eyes brightened and he quietly received this jade slip. He said, well, now that I think about it, several days ago there were a few divine transformation realm martial artists who accepted an extremely difficult mission, a trial at God-burying ridge. What did they look like? There were 2 men and 1 woman. The 2 men were common-looking, nothing special at all. The girl was pretty, but not some stunning beauty. Naki and Mr. Jew looked at each other. Mr. Jew nodded and said with a sound transmission, "It really might be them. They could have used an appearance-changing technique. As for that woman, she might be Xiao Moxian." Xiao Moxian, humph. Naki coldly coughed. He was also well aware of the agreement between the Saint race and the Divine Realms monster race. The good fortune Saint Sun would marry Xiao Moxian in order to solidify their status as allies, but now, Xiao Moxian was actually traveling so closely with Lin Ming. Although the relations between Naki and the good fortune Saint Sun weren't harmonious, and their rivalry could even be described as water and fire, Naki still didn't want to see a mere human cuckold the good fortune Saint Sun. "What else do you know?" Naki looked at the old imp. The old imp rubbed his hands together, a pensive expression on his face. "Give it to him." Naki's subordinate took out another origin rune jade slip. The old imp's eyes lit up with joy. "That's right, I remember. Haha, the 3 people you are looking for went to the West City to search for Fatty Jew as a guide. This Fatty Jew especially leads people to God Burying Ridge. He's a man that's always sniffing for any profit. Unless there was some accident, they should have already left by now. Countless people have died in God Burying Ridge over the years, but the guides who dare travel through God Burying Ridge all year round have certain understandings into the safer routes and entrances of God Burying Ridge. If you look for another guide, you might be able to overtake them on the road." "Oh, so there's something like that too. Where do I find a guide?" "Hehe, this information is complimentary. In the East City there is a pair of brothers called the Red and Black Spiders. They are skilled in shamanistic arts, tracking techniques, and curse techniques. Out of all the guides, their strength is the highest, but their price is also the highest. It would be best if you look for them. In God Burying Ridge it is extremely important to have a knowledgeable guide, otherwise if you randomly wander through that desolate land you'll die without even knowing how." "Red and black spiders? I understand." After obtaining this information, Naki demonically grinned. He had more or less confirmed that Lin Ming had entered God Burying Ridge. Now, it was time for the hunt to begin. "Mr. Jew, there was someone I asked you to contact a few days ago. Have they arrived yet?" "They are close. In fact, even without that person joining us we will still be able to kill the little beast easily. It's better if that person assists us. Even a lion must use their full force to capture a rabbit." Although Lin Ming only possesses a divine transformation realm cultivation, he has a great destiny upon his body and his life is hard to crush. Even though Mr. Jew is at the World King realm and there are also 2 half-step World King senior apprentice brothers here, it's hard to guarantee that we will be able to kill Lin Ming after finding him. If that person comes, then our chances of success will rise to 99%. Moreover, that person already has a grudge with Lin Ming. Even without us telling him to, he would do everything in his power to chase down Lin Ming. He should be thanking us for giving him this chance to begin with. As Naki spoke, Mr. Jew faintly smiled. "Your Highness is right. Since there's a free helper, we might as well make use of him. Let us go search for the guides first." 2 hours later, Naki's group found the red and black spiders that the old imp spoke about. These were 2 blood brothers that were together called the red and black spiders. The older brother was called Black Spider and the younger brother was called Red Spider. Both of them had Holy Lord level cultivations and were from the imp race. The 2 brothers were short and their bodies were wrapped in black and red cloaks. Their skin was shiny and dark and their eye sockets were deep to a terrifying level. Just from their aura alone, one could tell that these 2 were amazing martial artists within their level. Naki and his group paid enough origin energy runes that the Spider Brothers agreed to lead them to God Burying Ridge alone and no one else. Half a day later, everyone gathered at the city gates. However, none of them were in a hurry to leave yet, as if they were waiting for something. After another hour passed, Mr. Jew looked up towards the horizon. He smiled and said, "He's here." As Mr. Jew's voice fell, the space tore apart not too far away from them. A sharp sword tore out from the void, cutting through it like paper. Afterwards, a tall martial artist in black robes walked out from the space crack. This person was pale, with handsome and elegant looks. He had an extremely young appearance and his pupils were blood red. His entire body emitted a dark demonic energy. After Tian Ming's identity as a spy was unveiled by Lin Ming, he had no choice but to give up the Skydark Holy Lords and flee to the Saint Convocation Heaven, where he could fully rely on the saints. Otherwise, Empyrean Divine Dream would not have let him off. The foundation he had spent tens of thousands of years building had been destroyed in an instant. Moreover, because of his chase into the Sky Spill continent, he had lost a hand. Having to retrain this hand would place a massive delay on him breaking through to the Empyrean realm in the future. Perhaps it would even be a curse that made him unable to make another breakthrough in his lifetime. If it weren't for Lin Ming, then Tian Mingzi could have smoothly lurked until the outbreak of the war, providing all sorts of intelligence to search for the greatest benefits. His enmity with Lin Ming could be described as absolutely irreconcilable. Great Sage Tian Mingzi, you should also have an approximate understanding of the situation. Your mission this time is to work together with us to kill Lin Ming. If there is a chance, then I would like to fight alone with him, but if there isn't, then kill him first to eliminate all future troubles. After this matter is finished, I will prepare a generous gift for Sage Tian Mingzi. Even if you didn't offer me anything, I would do everything in my power to annihilate him. Tian Mingzi's expression was calm and his voice was icy cold, but his heart was raging with emotions. He hadn't revealed the secrets of the Sky Spill planet to everyone. His conclusion was that Lin Ming's rise to fame was concerned with the Sky Spill planet. After he returned from the Sky Spill planet all those years ago, he searched for all the information he could on the history of it, and he finally was able to piece together an idea of what happened there. Whether or not his guess was right, Tian Mingzi was positive that the Sky Spill planet's lucky chance was absolutely obtained by Lin Ming. If he could kill Lin Ming, then he could obtain these secrets for himself. At that time, not only would he have made up for all the losses from losing his palm, but he could also obtain a tremendous advantage that would allow him to break through to the Empyrean realm. Chapter 1472, Inner Ridge. Chapter 1472, Inner Ridge. In the bleak and desolate earth, exposed rocks littered the ground, vast and endless. God-burying Ridge occupied an area of tens of thousands of miles. It had slightly more surface area than a small planet. Besides mountain ranges, there were also valleys, dry lands, and deserts. In short, it was a completely barren world. The group of 11 people had already penetrated 2,000 miles deep into God-burying Ridge. They had spent more than 10 days to come this far. Everyone was closely gathered together with Fatty Jew. Even though Fatty Jew seemed a bit unreliable when he randomly sprinted out to gather some spirit treasure, the others still didn't act rashly. They had already learned from the Saint Youth's mistakes. There was no treasure here that was more important than their lives. Of course, there were occasionally some treasures on the road that were obtained by them. In Lin Ming's eyes, these treasures weren't tempting at all, but some people were actually moved. I found this first. A black-clothed girl with long hair said. I was the one who clearly found it. A tall girl with a bountiful chest said, standing her ground. The two women arguing were the young Dragon Clan girl and Xiao Moxian. They were both fighting over a precious and beautiful gem that contained a pure energy within it. To an ordinary martial artist, this would have been a priceless treasure. But people like Lin Ming, Xiao Moxian, and that Dragon Clan girl wouldn't necessarily care about something like this. The reason they quarreled was because their personalities didn't mesh at all. Whether it was the young Dragon Clan girl or Xiao Moxian, they both had arrogant and aggressive characters. After traveling together for over 10 days, they would occasionally come into verbal conflicts with each other. However, because neither party would yield, the result was that the tension between them only intensified. Lin Ming and the Dragon Clan youth could only wryly smile about this. However, these occasional arguments were actually a seasoning to this extremely arduous and boring journey. Beautiful ladies, I think we should rest here first. Once we pass through that mountain in front of us, that is when we truly entering God-burying Ridge. The dangers will be greater than ever, so it's best if you preserve your strength to deal with them. Fatty Jew smiled as he stepped up to mediate their argument. God-burying Ridge's inner ridge. Are you saying that we've only been walking through the outer ridge? The Dragon Clan youth asked Fatty Jew, startled. There is no such thing as an outer ridge. We've only been walking along the very edge of God-burying Ridge. We've walked for over 10 days and that was only the edge. Many people were depressed as they heard this. Through all of these days, there had only been a single instance of danger. But for the rest of the time, everyone still maintained full vigilance so that they could immediately react to any possible dangers. This caused all of them to feel mentally exhausted. However, Fatty Jew just told them all that they had only been meandering along the edges of God-burying ridge. They couldn't help but find this hard to accept. How do we define the boundary between God-burying ridge's inner ridge and outer edge? Lin Ming asked after a brief moment of thought. That's a good question. The way we define the inner ridge and outer edge of God-burying ridge is using God-burying ridge's Tao field as the divisionary threshold. There are some rumors that say God-burying ridge's Tao field is left behind by the Azura Roadmaster and had already existed for countless billions of years. However, no one really knows how it came to be. But, perhaps because the Tao field is too ancient or perhaps because the person who laid down this Tao field had intended it to be so, there are actually over a dozen entrances into this Tao field. We are currently going to go through one of them. The entrance we'll be passing through is the safest one and could also be called the only possible one for us to go through. All other entrances will cause near immediate death upon entry. Azura Roadmaster. Fatty Jew's words left Lin Ming speechless. As for everyone else, their mouths dropped down in astonishment. In their minds, the Azura Roadmaster was a legendary existence who likely exceeded every other past or present powerhouse in the universe. Now, Fatty Jew was actually saying that this God-burying ridge Tao field was left behind by the Azura Roadmaster. Those are only wild speculations, of course. No one can truly say how the God-burying ridge came to be. As I said before, the God-burying ridge Tao field has already formed a self-contained world. Once you pass through the entrance, the dangers will dramatically increase. All of you must be psychologically prepared for anything to happen. After listening to Fatty Jew's words, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. If the God-burying ridge Tao field was analogous to a poisonous bug pot, then they could now be considered as truly entering the poisonous bug pot. They would have to face all sorts of evil beings that had evolved over billions of years. Among these existences, some could be considered living creatures and some couldn't be considered anything at all. They could be sentient fields of energy or even accumulations of corpse energy or ghost energy. These sorts of things had no intellect at all, only an instinct to swallow everything. They would swallow energy and food, continuing to grow until they even swallowed the memories of martial artists. After gathering enough energy and soul wisdom, they would eventually evolve into demons. In short, the inner ridge of God-burying ridge was an extremely bizarre and strange world with countless mysterious species. Even a world king could die within. If one's cultivation was high, they still might not necessarily be able to live, but if one's destiny was great enough, then even a divine Lord Realm powerhouse could safely enter and exit after finding a God-burying stone. Only an Empyrean could rely upon their tyrannical power to freely travel through God-burying ridge. But, if an Empyrean were to enter to deepest depths of God-burying ridge where tragic Death Valley lay, even they would die in vain, never to emerge again. Fatty Jew led everyone a distance until they reached a rift valley. This rift valley extended deep underground. The further one walked, the deeper they went. This rift valley was only 100-some feet wide and the walls were cliffs that extended tens of thousands of feet high. It was difficult for even monkeys to climb. The ground of the rift valley was slippery, glowing all over with moss and giant mushrooms. It was an eerie and terrifying feeling. At this time, Lin Ming saw a dazzling brilliance appear in front of him, as if a paradise was hidden at the end of this rift valley. Faintly, Lin Ming could hear the sounds of birds and even the fragrance of spirit grass. After walking several more steps, Lin Ming confirmed his guess. Through a crevice in the rift valley's cliffs, there was a world of auspicious and beautiful lights. From a bleak and desolate world to suddenly this fantastical and wondrous scene, this immediate change was shocking. Don't be fooled by what you see. What you see might not be the truth. After entering the inner ridge, use your vision as little as possible and use your divine sense as much as you can. Anything you see can be a threat to you, even things that aren't actively attacking you. Do not try to bump into anything lest you draw a disaster upon yourself. As for things you cannot see even with your sense, treat them as illusions that do not exist. As Fatty Jew spoke, he led everyone through the entrance to this paradise. The entrance was overflowing with origin energy, but as Lin Ming approached, he could actually feel a faint killing intent. The origin energy here didn't seem auspicious at all. Rather, Lin Ming could faintly feel that the light of the entrance was so dense that it condensed into a storm of lightning and fire, able to burn anything that passed into ashes. This is the entrance, but there is no easy way to enter. You can only rely on your own true essence to protect your entire body and forcefully pass through. An ordinary middle divine lord martial artist will be charred to ash. Can you enter? Fatty Jew looked over at Lin Ming and the others. Lin Ming, Xiao Moxian, and Monster Prince Juyu had the lowest cultivations out of everyone here. They were naturally the ones Fatty Jew was questioning. Let me warn you ahead of time. When I said that a divine transformation realm martial artist entering God-burying ridge is seeking death, this is the reason. Moreover, there is also you fellows. Fatty Jew's eyes swept over the Dragon Clan girl and the black-caped youth standing not too far away. The two of them were at the early Divine Lord realm. As the Dragon Clan girl saw the doubt in Fatty Jew's eyes, her eyes flashed with disdain. A middle Divine Lord cultivation isn't anything at all. In fact, it is extremely simple. Because of my race I don't even need to use astral essence or true essence. With the intensity of my body alone I can resist it. As the Dragon Clan girl spoke she looked at Xiao Moxian, a thoughtful look in her eyes. But as for you, you should be careful not to die. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Moxian bent over laughing as if she had heard the funniest joke of her life. I don't need true essence to enter or exit. Those flames and thunder won't even touch the hem of my cloth. As Xiao Moxian spoke, the other martial artists were startled. This was simply a bit too exaggerated. If Xiao Moxian was an unrivaled genius that could fight a middle divine lord with her late divine transformation cultivation, then they could accept that, but for her to say that she didn't even need true essence to pass through the curtain of thunder and flames unscathed was a bit too ridiculous. They had already seen how fierce God-burying ridge could be. Even Fatty Jew said that an ordinary divine lord powerhouse wouldn't be able to enter, then it must be true. He certainly wasn't the type to exaggerate. The anger of two proud girls really leaves me speechless. Fatty Jew forcefully smiled. Don't try to cause trouble, it's not easy to pass through. If you think you can show off by not using true essence, you might end up losing your life. A late divine lord martial artist said from the group. However, the two women clearly didn't want to listen to him. The Dragon Clan girl smiled. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? Then let me see just how you can pass this energy attack unscathed without using any true essence at all. As the Dragon Clan girl spoke she was already stepping forwards. She flew straight towards the entrance, not using any true essence at all. And behind her, the Dragon Clan youth was only shaking his head, clearly not worried about the safety of his little sister. As for the others, their eyes were wide. To not use any true essence but instead rely on her powerful mortal body to resist the energy within that space. Were her defensive capabilities really that strong? Peng peng peng. A barrage of energy exploded over the Dragon Clan girl. Her skin shined with a cold light. She was indeed using her body to resist this attack. The clothing she wore was a superior spirit artifact. Even under the barrage of this intense energy, she didn't seem harmed at all. She's this strong. Many people thought that the Dragon Clan girl was only exaggerating, but they never expected she would actually use her body alone to resist the impact of energy and pass through. This level of talent was frightening. It's the defense of dragon scales. Lin Ming had the blood of an azure dragon flowing within him, so he could feel that when the Dragon Clan girl passed through the entrance, faint dragon scales appeared over her body. By depending on her dragon scales and high-grade spirit artifact vestment, she was able to easily resist this energy. The cold light that shimmered over her skin was reflected from those dragon scales. Many monster race martial artists would have defensive scales appear over their bodies when they transformed. But it was difficult to freely manipulate this transformation like this Dragon Clan girl did, instantly changing her body. Those Dragon Clan siblings aren't ordinary at all. I wonder which level universe they came from. As Lin Ming was thinking this, Xiao Moxian also moved. Although she only had a late divine transformation cultivation, she didn't seem weaker at all. Without using any true essence, she also rushed through the entrance. Chapter 1473, Ghostly Steps. Chapter 1473, Ghostly Steps. As Xiao Moxian rushed into the entrance without using any true essence at all, the other martial artists nearly gasped in shock. The reason that the Dragon Clan girl didn't use true essence to pass through the entrance was that she cultivated dual body and energy as well as her Divine Lord Realm cultivation. But Xiao Moxian's cultivation was only at the late divine transformation realm. The difference was far too great. Moreover, this black-clothed girl seemed unlikely to be a martial artist who had reached large success of body transformation, yet she still wasn't using any true essence at all. In a spark of light, Xiao Moxian had already broken through the entrance. The entrance dazzled with a golden light, overflowing with the chaotic powers of thunder, flame, wind blades, and even space and time, everything weaving together into a web of death. Xiao Moxian didn't even use her phoenix true form as she rushed into this web. Ca. With a light sound, Xiao Moxian's body was struck by a bolt of thunder. The watching martial artists' pupils shrank. Without any time to respond, they saw Xiao Moxian's figure vanish, leaving nothing behind but an afterimage. This terrifying speed didn't surprise Lin Ming and Monster Prince Juyu. However, the other martial artists felt their eyes widen in astonishment even as disbelief colored their faces. It was hard to imagine that this terrifyingly fast Xiao Moxian was only a divine transformation realm martial artist. In the web of chaotic energies, Xiao Moxian erratically drifted about, leaving behind a series of afterimages in her wake. She was like an enchanting spirit of the night, dancing through the skies and leaving a trail of ethereal smoke, freely traveling through the web of energies that was nearly impossible to avoid. When people thought that Xiao Moxian had nowhere left to dodge and she was about to be struck, she used an inconceivably fast movement technique to pass through gaps within the barrage of energies. Finally, those attacks of chaotic energies only struck her after images. How terrifying! How is she doing that? Just looking at that dense web of attacks, no one believed that someone could simply use a movement technique to dodge everything and pass through the entrance to the inner ridge. This was simply incredible. Among the many martial artists watching, there were some who saw how Xiao Moxian was dodging. For instance, Fatty Ju and the Dragon Clan youth. Although the chaotic energies at the entrance look crowded, the truth is that energy attacks come in waves and there is a brief gap between these waves that lasts for less than an instant. That black-clothed girl can see through these gaps and pass through them, the Dragon Clan youth slowly said. But this explanation was even more shocking. Although this approach seemed simple, it was nearly impossible to accomplish. It needed an incomparably horrifying level of observation and calculating ability. Every moment, one had to include countless variables to figure out where to dodge. Just a single mistake would mean one would be struck by the chaotic energies. Whoosh! Xiao Moxian passed through the inner ridge entrance and steadily landed down without using any true essence, as she had said before. Moreover, the chaotic energies hadn't even touched her clothing. As the Dragon Clan girl saw Xiao Moxian land, her complexion became ugly. Compared to Xiao Moxian's light and sprightly movements, her using her bodily defensive capabilities and high-grade spirit artifact vestment to withstand the barrage of chaotic energies seemed clumsy and oafish. Moreover, she had to admit that she was inferior to Xiao Moxian in movement techniques. As Xiao Moxian looked at the Dragon Clan girl's complexion, she smirked. This was exactly the effect she wanted. Is that girl really at the divine transformation realm? In terms of movements, I am not even capable of a tenth of what she can do. Perhaps she has some particular talent in terms of movement, but what she did just now needs not only power, but also talent in observation and instantly calculating the situation. Her perception must be terrifying. Many martial artists didn't know that Xiao Moxian was the descendant of a true god beast. If they knew, they would be so surprised that their chins would hit the floor. After all, she was a proud beauty that even the heavens would be jealous of. In fact, Xiao Moxian wasn't just talented in movement. She was strong in all aspects, and her movement abilities were only a part of her strength. Beside Lin Ming, Fatty Ju traced his chin, secretly dumbfounded. He originally thought that out of all the guests here, the dragon siblings and short black-cloaked youth were already extremely talented, but he never imagined that there would be someone so bizarre. It was no wonder that this divine transformation realm girl would be so brave as to enter God-burying Ridge. After Xiao Moxian passed the entrance, everyone turned to look at Lin Ming and Monster Prince Juyu. These two people had come together with Xiao Moxian and were also at the divine transformation realm. Just how strong were they? After being looked upon by so many people, Monster Prince Juyu's complexion was extremely poor. In his innermost heart he didn't want to go into the inner ridge, but at this time it wouldn't be safe for him to return alone either. His only choice was to steel his mind and continue forwards. What shit luck. Monster Prince Juyu calmly thought to himself. He revolved his true essence to the limit and directly impacted towards the entrance. Ka. Thunder and flames crashed onto his body. It wasn't easy for him to withstand such a fierce destructive power. In fact, it was somewhat straining. When Xiao Moxian was at the middle divine transformation realm, her strength already far surpassed Monster Prince Juyu's. Now that she had stepped into the late divine transformation realm, the difference between her and Monster Prince Juyu increased even more. Who? Monster Prince Juyu also steadily landed on the floor. From start to finish his performance was satisfactory. It looks like these three people are all unrivaled monstrous geniuses, and that black-clothed girl should be the most magnificent of them all. Even so, it's incredible if just a single one of these monstrous geniuses were to appear, so why would three of them show up together? Fatty Ju breathed out a sigh of relief. He could feel that this black-clothed girl's movements and talent already surpassed the scope of his understanding. This little brother, it seems you'll be able to easily pass too. Fatty Ju smiled at Lin Ming. From just the aura emanating from Lin Ming's body, he could feel that Lin Ming was also a dual body and energy cultivator, and his foundation was shockingly solid. It was hard to imagine how strong he was. Lin Ming nodded. Then, he activated his movement techniques and rushed towards the entrance to the inner ridge. In terms of speed, Lin Ming had the gate of wonder and high attainments in the Thunder Laws, allowing him to surpass Xiao Moxian in this aspect. In terms of perception, Lin Ming was on par with Xiao Moxian. For him to pass through the entrance like Xiao Moxian had done wouldn't be a problem at all. However, Lin Ming had no need to do that. Using true essence to protect his body was the simplest and easiest method. The power of thunder and fire wrapped around Lin Ming, creating a barrier around him. This power just happened to counterbalance the chaotic energies. No more, no less, just right. After several breaths of time, Lin Ming passed through the entrance. This youth isn't simple either. But he doesn't seem to be as amazing as that black-clothed girl. Many people secretly speculated. Of course, it was hard to see just how much strength Lin Ming was holding back by him passing through the entrance. It looks like we can't regard these three as ordinary late divine transformation realm martial artists. Although that young man didn't have some startling performance when he passed through the entrance, his skill in controlling energy was sublime. He didn't waste a single speck of energy at all. It's clear that he has high achievements in the laws. As Fatty Ju thought this, he protected his body with true essence and passed through the entrance. Behind him the others began to follow one at a time. Some passed through with ease and some didn't. You're quite skilled. Allow me to introduce myself. I am called Dragon Cloud and this is my little sister Dragon Moon. As the Dragon Clan youth arrived beside Lin Ming, he turned towards him and spoke with a smile. Chapter 1474, Curse. Chapter 1474, Curse. The talented and the strong always attracted the attention of others. When Dragon Cloud saw the strength of Lin Ming's group, he immediately wanted to become friends with them. Lin Ming and Monster Prince Juyu weren't too startling in their performance, but Xiao Moxian was stunning. My name is Lin Lanjian, Lin Ming said, introducing himself. My name is Jixiana. Xiao Moxian giggled. As opposed to Lin Ming who had given a fake name, Xiao Moxian had given her true name. The surname of Empyrean Demandorn's direct lineage was Ji. Xiao Moxian's birth name was Ji Xiana. Xiao Moxian's name that she usually referred to herself as was one that was conferred to her in a smelting trial. Xiao Moxian, the little demon fairy. Fatty Ju was extremely careful as he led the group forwards into the inner ridge. He pulled out the compass and constantly adjusted direction using divination's arts. His speed was even slower than when they were walking through the outer ridge. Even so, no one complained. As they continued to walk forwards, Lin Ming was silent. He looked all around him, using his sense to probe the inner ridge Dao field. In the legends, God-burying ridge Dao field was left behind by the Azura Roadmaster and had evolved through billions of years of time. As Lin Ming investigated his surroundings, he could faintly feel a deep and boundless aura. This aura gathered into vague lines of the great Tao that slowly flowed through the world like streams of stars. These great Tao lines. Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. He could feel that the great Tao lines were somewhat familiar, however, he couldn't immediately recall where he had seen them before. Could this be the Jade Pendant's map? Lin Ming's mind shook. He seeped his divine sense into his spatial ring and began to verify the lines within the Emperor Jade's map with what he could sense around him. Finally, he was able to confirm that this map within the Jade Pendant was a chart of God-burying ridge Dao field. In other words, the Azura Roadmaster had once carved the entire chart of God-burying ridge Dao field into this Jade Pendant. As Lin Ming realized this, he shuddered. If so, then this Emperor Jade was far too valuable. With the entire Dao field chart of God-burying ridge, let alone the value it had in exploring this land, just the concepts, laws, and all sorts of principles within the Dao field itself were more than enough for Lin Ming to gain massive insights. As Lin Ming continued forwards with Fatty Ju, he simultaneously verified the Emperor Jade map's lines with the Dao field around him. Seeing the map was one thing and personally experiencing it for himself was another. Now that Lin Ming was able to verify this Dao field with what he knew, the previously mysterious and impossibly profound Emperor Jade was actually able to allow Lin Ming to discover all sorts of deep and mystical principles. Every 2 hours, Lin Ming would gain new comprehensions. To branch out a part of his concentration and divine sense to meditate on the Emperor Jade was extremely dangerous in God-burying ridge. Although Lin Ming practiced the divine dream law and his sense was formidable, even he wasn't an exception. However, sharpening one's axe wouldn't delay the process of cutting wood. Preparing himself for this area would be far more beneficial. This also allowed Lin Ming to understand the essence of God-burying ridge. This was something that Fatty Ju couldn't compare with. Although Fatty Ju could guide one into God-burying ridge, this was due to the sum of countless predecessors who had traded their lives for more experiences. The master passed their knowledge to their apprentice and this knowledge continued all the way until now. Although these experiences were easy to use, they couldn't explain just why God-burying ridge was the way it was. Everyone continued forward slowly and calmly. Then, at this time, a grey tornado appeared in the skies. Wind howled and the faint moans of ghosts wafted in the air. These ghostly beings were formed from all sorts of energy fields that had existed here for billions of years. They could be called bizarre and incomprehensible. Even a holy lord would feel dread facing these existences. Ignore them. As long as they don't take the initiative to attack us, then we don't need to bother with them. I will use this heaven net compass to shield the vitality of the 11 of us. These ghosts do not have eyes nor do they have divine sense. They only have an instinct to devour life. As long as they don't smell the life coming from us, they will not find us. As Fatty Ju spoke, many array symbols began to spin around them, sticking onto everyone and wrapping around them. This was only a light force field with some runes. This thin barrier blocked out the ghosts that could rush towards them at any moment, wanting to steal their lives. Woo! 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 Fierce winds swept up and the cries of ghosts became increasingly loud. Then, from within the tornado, the figure of a ghost king that was several dozen feet tall appeared. This ghost king's body had already substantialized, and it had the facial features of a person. 2 soul flames flickered within its hollow eyes. It was clearly intelligent. This intelligence was gathered from the ghost king swallowing the souls of numerous martial artists. By eating up the wisdom of living beings, This Ghost King had eventually evolved its own form of a soul. Ghost King. Fatty Jew frowned, a dignified look on his face. From the time he entered God-Burying Ridge, Fatty Jew had always been extremely careful and slow in his pace, but he had also been smiling the entire time. This was the first time he showed such a grim expression. Is the situation very bad? Some people asked with a true essence sound transmission. Fatty Jew nodded. Yes. If this fellow discovers us, then some of us will certainly die. The force field that Fatty Jew laid down was not invincible. If these ghosts were powerful enough, they could see through his force field. At that time, all of them would be in danger. This Ghost King was extremely difficult to deal with, and it was likely that several of them would die in the ensuing battle. But the most terrifying part was that the echoes of their battle would likely attract other evil beings over here. Once that occurred, their losses would be astronomical. Everyone maintained full vigilance. Every single martial artist here was an extraordinary individual amongst their level. As they grew up to this point, they had encountered many brutal battles. Facing such a grim scene, all of them appeared solemn but not panicked at all. Luckily, the force field that Fatty Jew laid down was extremely stable, locking down the life force of everyone here and not revealing the smallest trace. The Ghost King didn't notice their existence at all. The black winds faded. The Ghost King seemed as if it would leave soon. Everyone began to secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Not facing a life or death battle was the best possible outcome. The further the Ghost King went, the more relieved Fatty Jew became. The moment he was about to tell everyone to begin moving out once more, a sudden change occurred. A mysterious and invisible strength emerged from the air, smashing into Fatty Jew's force field and causing it to wildly shake as if it would shatter at any moment. After that strike just now, the Ghost King that had been leaving stopped in its tracks as if it had sensed something. What is happening? A half-step Holy Lord trial challenger asked, his complexion darkening. Fatty Jew's complexion was grim and unsure. Bang! With another strike, the force field became even weaker. Fatty Jew's palms began to drip beads of sweat. He had confirmed a terrifying fact, and that was that someone was attacking them, not the evil beings of God-Burying Ridge, but other people. What is happening? Some other people also discovered that something was wrong. Curse technique. This is a curse attack that we God-Burying Ridge guides use. Someone is using a secret curse technique to attack us. A God-Burying Ridge guide was an extremely special occupation in Heaven Devil City that had an incalculably long inheritance. Masters passed their knowledge to their apprentices, and their apprentices passed their knowledge to their students. This included all sorts of secret techniques, including divination, feng shui, array formations, curse arts, and so on. Since long ago, the God-Burying Ridge guides would compete with each other. They competed for customers, and for the reason of stealing away their rivals' knowledge and inheritance, they would even kill them. They could use all sorts of secret arts to interfere with the other party's abilities. In particular, this was true for when the other party was under attack by the evil beings of God-Burying Ridge. Using secret techniques at this time was the most vicious and ruthless method. Curse. What kind of curse? Fatty Jew's words aroused unease in everyone. Curse techniques were extremely mysterious and almost impossible to guard against. As long as this other party had locked onto their soul aura, they could attack from afar. Even among the common mortals there were sorcerers that could harm people by stabbing a little strawman figure of someone, much less martial artists. Normally, using curse arts against martial artists of a similar level didn't have much effect. But the crucial point was that this curse attack that struck Fatty Jew at this moment was the straw that would crush the camel's back. This curse technique, could it be the spiders? As Fatty Jew realized this, his complexion became extremely ugly. Amongst the God-Burying Ridge guides, the Spider Brothers were a notorious duo. They were infamous for murdering others to steal their possessions, and it was unknown how many fellow guides had died under their hands. Even their own customers might be killed by them. Spiders. Lin Ming had never heard this name before. Now that they were being attacked, he naturally associated this with Imperial Prince Naki. Could this be his doing? Thinking back on it, he did leave some flaws behind in his methods. It was possible that Naki had chased him all the way to God-burying Ridge. The main point was that Lin Ming never expected he would meet Naki at Heaven Devil City to begin with. And now that he realized this, there was no time to make up for these mistakes. Bang! Fatty Jew's force field shook again, as if it were about to shatter. As for the Ghost King, it had also discovered that there was something strange here. It opened its mouth and let out a deep and ghastly roar. Chapter 1475, Instant Death. Chapter 1475, Instant Death. At this time, 1,000 miles away, a giant red spider and a giant black spider were lying on the ground. These were the Spider Brothers' contract beasts as well as their mounts. And between these two spiders, the Spider Brothers were sitting cross-legged in the void. A grey crystalline sphere shimmered in front of them, clearly reflecting the image of Fatty Jew's face. I didn't think you would have this sort of method. I will increase the agreed upon rewards. Imperial Prince Naki smiled with satisfaction from behind the Spider Brothers. They had been casually recommended by the mission issuer at Black God Fort, but after he had hired them he had been pleasantly surprised with their skills. Hee, us brothers are the strongest God-burying Ridge guides of Heaven Devil City. The several other guides are all within our control. We've already secretly placed tracking symbols on their bodies. Red Spider cackled, his voice hoarse. The Spider Brothers were imp race martial artists. They originally excelled in tracking, cursing, poisons, and assassinations. Many years ago they obtained a set of god runes that allowed them to mark the other guides and quietly track their positions. Once these guides obtained a rare treasure from God-burying Ridge, they would kill them and steal their goods. Now, they were using this tracking technique to locate Fatty Jew and attack him with a curse technique. Because they were too far away, the curse technique wasn't too strong. But using it at this exact moment actually had a wondrous effect. We have already fulfilled your requests. With our interference, it will only be a matter of time before we catch up to them. My only fear is that those several little fellows can't withstand us playing around with them and will be eaten up by the evil beings of God-burying Ridge. Black Spider said with a faint note of disdain. Ha, if that man can be directly killed off then that is for the best. But as for that woman, do not kill her. She is still useful to me. Imperial Prince Naki happily laughed. Since he was doing all of this he might as well do it to the limit. After killing Lin Ming he would steal Xiao Moxian away. But, he had to be careful in how he dealt with Xiao Moxian. If he were to do anything to her then he would have to cleanly handle the matter. He couldn't allow even a hint of a rumor to escape, otherwise the alliance between the Saints and the Divine Realm monster race would shatter. If so, then it would be difficult for him to escape severe punishments. Moreover, his greatest opponent, the Good Fortune Saint Sun, would take this chance and launch an all-out attack to eliminate him while he was down. Thinking of this, Naki licked his lips. He was very willing to make this future Saint Sovereign senior apprentice brother of his a cuckold. Don't even dream of it. A cold voice suddenly said. The Spider Brothers frowned. They turned their heads, looking towards a black-robed man. This black-robed man had handsome and elegant features. His skin was pale and his jewel pupils shined with a blood-red light. This person was Tian Mingzi. Seeing this person with a great world king cultivation, the Spider Brothers choked on their response. They could only suppress the mocking words they wanted to spit out. This fellow Lin Ming, I understand him very well. If you think that a mere curse technique will kill him then you're simply fantasizing too much. Tian Mingzi had no scruples when he spoke, even mocking Imperial Prince Naki. Although Imperial Prince Naki wasn't happy, he didn't refute these words. As the saying went, the one who understood you most was not your friend but your enemy, and against someone like Lin Ming, Tian Mingzi indeed had the right to say all of this. It doesn't matter if he doesn't die. First we will ruin them. It's best if we can make that fatty leading them lose his combat strength. As long as they don't have that fatty leading them then the others will be nothing but headless flies. It will be easy to capture them all then. Imperial Prince Naki gloomily said. Capture. A large section of the force field that Fatty Jew laid down was torn apart. A ghostly wind swept up the rocks, howling towards them as it carried infinite moaning screams. This is bad. Fatty Jew was in a dire situation. His fat face was wet with drops of sweat. At this time their only choice was to fight. Be careful of this wind. It isn't ordinary wind but restless ghost energy, Fatty Jew shouted out. But as he spoke, there was a miserable cry as a middle divine lord martial artist had his arm touched by this black wind. In a mere moment, that man's arm seemed to be cut by countless knives. Flesh and blood flew off in rapid chunks, rapidly swallowed up by ghostly spirits in the air. Soon, there was nothing left of that arm but white bones. Arth! The martial artist cried out in pain and terror. The other people also felt a creepy chill crawl over their scalp and spine. As martial artists who had fought through endless slaughter fields, they were used to seeing life or death situations. But this gruesome scene was 10 times more horrifying than dying normally. Someone couldn't resist the pressure of the black winds and turned tail to run. Do not run away. If you leave you'll just die faster, Fatty Jew shouted. However, it was too late. The martial artist who fled was immediately sucked up into the black winds. The mourning cries of infinite ghosts became even louder. The Ghost King suddenly stepped forwards, its claws grasping towards the chest of that fleeing martial artist and instantly sucking away the flesh and blood of his heart. The martial artist screamed in agony and fear. In just several breaths of time he turned into a dried-up corpse that scattered to dust in the wild wind. His flesh and blood was sucked dry. Fatty Jew frowned. Now there were only 10 people left in the group and one of them was severely wounded. The weaker ones amongst the 10 all paled as the blood drained from their faces. Perhaps the next one to die would be from among them. We must cause heavy damage to that Ghost King. I will attack, you people defend. Fatty Jew roared out. As long as they could destroy the Ghost King there was no need to fear the other ghosts. Everyone was in a critical situation. Dragon Cloud and Dragon Moon took out 2 10-foot-long dragon spears. These spears were magnificent and grand, every strike was able to turn several ghosts into ashes. The others also hastily attacked. The most eye-catching among them was the small youth with the bandage-wrapped hands. He held a black sword and repeatedly slashed out. Every time he did, 1 or 2 ghosts would be savagely killed. Although this was less than the dragon siblings, his sword speed was extremely fast and his total kill count was no lower. As for the others, they were weaker than Dragon Cloud and Dragon Moon. That terribly howling black and cold wind placed a tremendous pressure on all of them. Hoo! With blazing seals shining in his hands, Fatty Jew threw a burning charm towards the Ghost King. At the same time, his round body leapt up like an overweight rabbit, hopping towards the Ghost King. With a wave of his right hand, a massive thick cleaver appeared in his grip. Without further ado, he chopped straight down at the Ghost King's head. Bang! The charm exploded and the flash of fire caused the Ghost King to slow for a moment. Fatty Jew's cleaver came chopping down, cutting off all avenues for the Ghost King to dodge. However, not only was the Ghost King not startled, it began to cruelly chuckle. Its ugly and fierce head turned to the right as it used its shoulder to forcefully withstand Fatty Jew's cleaver strike. Catcher! Golden light radiated outwards. A thick black plate of armor had appeared over the Ghost King's shoulder, stiffly blocking the cleaver strike. Its body paused for a moment before it stretched out a claw towards Fatty Jew. What a terrifying defensive ability! Fatty Jew rapidly flew backwards. At the same time, the dragon siblings as well as the small youth rushed forwards like ghosts and gods. Although this was their first time combining attacks, they actually coordinated well with a tacit understanding of what to do. 2 spears and a sword thrust forwards, allowing no chance for the Ghost King to dodge. However, the Ghost King didn't plan to dodge at all. Armor shimmered over its body once more, and with a series of loud ringing sounds, the 3 attacks were all resisted by the Ghost King's armor. The Ghost King's complexion only distorted a little but there was no damage to it at all. Too strong. The 3 people's expressions changed. And at this time, a black tornado came shrouding down over them, enveloping all 3 of them. With their strength, breaking through this black tornado would only take the blink of an eye. But the Ghost King wouldn't give them this time. It cackled as it thrust its claws towards the three of them. Its icy cold claws glowed with a ghostly green light. They were clearly poisonous. If this Ghost King were to grab them, then they would either become its food or be poisoned and eventually become its companions. "We will block you, break through this black wind," Dragon Cloud shouted out towards the small fellow. As he did so, he thrust his spear towards the Ghost King. They had to delay for enough time for this small fellow to break through the black wind, otherwise they would all be doomed. And as Dragon Cloud and Dragon Moon thrust out their spears, they discovered that Lin Ming had appeared behind the Ghost King at some unknown time. He was like a spirit that directly teleported to the Ghost King's rear. His weapon was also a spear. This deep red spear was slightly shorter than the dragon siblings' spears, and it looked ordinary, not particularly special at all. A spear thrust out. Spear light howled, piercing right towards the Ghost King's back. Jeje. The Ghost King queerly laughed, simply not caring about Lin Ming's attack. That strange black armor also shimmered into existence behind it. It planned to directly withstand Lin Ming's spear. At the same time, its body drew backwards. It no longer attacked the dragon siblings, but reached out a claw to grab Lin Ming's head. "Be careful." The dragon siblings cried out in alarm. If Lin Ming were to continue to stubbornly attack and his attack were to fail, then his head would be burst apart by the Ghost King like a rotten watermelon. Lin Ming's complexion was cold and determined, and there was no hesitation in his movements. Within his body, the 8 inner hidden gates opened up as the power of essence, energy, and divine fused together as one. 3 essences as one. Power of heavenly tribulation. Bang! With a loud explosion, the power of thunder and fire stored within the heretical god tree erupted forth. Thunder and fire, heavenly tribulation wove together, creating a horrifying detonation. Whether it was fire or thunder, they were the elements that countered ghosts and evil beings the most, much less thunder and fire, heavenly tribulation. With a blinding divine light, a sun seemed to appear in the world. Lin Ming's spear stabbed into the Ghost King's back, tearing through its armor as spear light blew up within its body. In that instant, the Ghost King's substantialized body was torn apart like a cloth sack. Thunder and fire spewed forth from its mouth and all over its body, forming beams of red and purple light that made the Ghost King look like a porcupine. "You woo!" The Ghost King cried out in agony. However, there was no chance it could continue surviving beneath this terrifying barrage of thunder and fire. With a loud popping sound, it vanished into smoke and ash. It's dead." Fatty Jew's eyes were as wide as full moons. The dragon siblings and the small fellow also felt this was unbelievable. They had fought with the Ghost King just now, so they understood just how terrifying it was, yet it was instantly killed off by Lin Ming's spear. Chapter 1476, Paradise Reborn. Chapter 1476, Paradise Reborn. If the horrors of God-burying Ridge had only been rumors in the past, the dragon siblings had now personally experienced just how terrifying and formidable these evil beings were with their weapons. Although they were confident they could engage in a prolonged battle and eventually whittle down the Ghost King, this was still God-burying Ridge, a land with countless dangers and tribulations round every corner. If the battle continued on much longer, who knew what else would have been dragged into the mix? If that happened, even if they weren't completely annihilated, they would still suffer tremendous losses. Moreover, in the chaotic battle, some people would have been chased down by those ghostly creatures. If these people separated from Fatty Jew, their fate could be imagined. Even Fatty Jew didn't have any methods to effectively deal with the Ghost King, and his cultivation was at the early Holy Lord realm. He was also considered quite strong, with many tricky abilities and methods he could use. Even if Fatty Jew were to run into a weaker middle Holy Lord realm martial artist, he could still protect himself. But in this situation, the Ghost King that Fatty Jew hadn't been able to do anything to was instantly killed off by Lin Ming. A late divine transformation realm genius had strength equal to a late Holy Lord master. That was leaping over 2 large boundaries. From the start, everyone thought that Xiao Moxian was the most extraordinary individual in Lin Ming's group, especially when it came to movement. But it seemed that Lin Ming far surpassed her. I really have no idea how he trained this far. Although he has the blood of the Azure Dragon within him due to some lucky chance, in terms of bloodline talent, that will only make him better than an ordinary martial artist. It's impossible for Azure Dragon blood alone to allow him to reach this level. Even my dragon clan is inferior to him. Dragon Rain found this hard to accept. Lin Ming's bloodline was far inferior to her own, but in terms of strength, the late divine transformation Lin Ming was far stronger than she was at the early divine Lord Rel. This caused her to feel deeply frustrated at this great disparity. His talent simply doesn't come from the Azure Dragon blood alone. There must be some secret on his body, but it's hard to say what it is. Dragon Cloud rapidly said with a sound transmission. At this time, Fatty Jew forced out a smile, saying, "Everyone, don't just stand there stunned, we're still in trouble here." Millimeter. Everyone finally perked up after being reminded by Fatty Jew. Now was not the time to be distracted. No matter how freakishly abnormal Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were, the top priority right now was to settle the matter with these ghosts as soon as possible. By all reasoning, now that the Ghost King had died, these ghost winds should no longer prove a threat, so why was Fatty Jew saying they were still in trouble? "What's the trouble?" Dragon Cloud anxiously asked. Fatty Jew said, "God-burying Ridge's ghost winds are usually led by a Ghost King. Once the leading Ghost King dies, the ghost wind should disappear. However, the ghost wind is becoming increasingly fierce. This means that there is another Ghost King nearby, or possibly even the higher-level existence Ghost Emperor, an evil being equal to a World King powerhouse. That is not something any of us can deal with." Fatty Jew was the calmest and most analytical person in the group. He had passed through countless dangerous situations in God-burying Ridge. Although Lin Ming's strength had far surpassed his earlier expectations, he still didn't think that Lin Ming would have the ability to deal with a World King-level Ghost Emperor. Ghost Emperor, World King powerhouse? As everyone heard this, they sucked in a breath of cold air. Then, deafening noises filled the air as the sound of metal crashing upon metal echoed through the void. This sound was like the sound of chains being violently dragged across the floor. A terrifying aura came shrouding down from the skies, sending chills up everyone's bodies. Fatty Jew's complexion greatly changed. Hurry and escape. He had already determined that their battle with the evil spirits just now had finally lured in some incredibly horrifying existence. In God-burying Ridge, if one lost the protection of a force field and had to face these endless evil beings head-on, the strength of a single martial artist was very minor in comparison. If there was a single mistake, then one could easily perish. Rah! A terrifying roar split the world. For a time, devastatingly strong winds rose up from all around. Evil spirits howled, and the martial artist, whose arm had been withered away by the ghost winds before, was directly sucked up into the swirling gale. "Ah!" The martial artist screamed out in agony. His body suddenly exploded in the violent winds, turning into a rain of bones and blood. As Fatty Jew saw this, he no longer hesitated. He chose a direction and rushed straight ahead. Everyone followed him. Lin Ming also put away his long spear and fled with all his strength. Although he was formidable, even he wouldn't do something as risky as facing this World King-level Ghost Emperor. Woo tilde! Woo tilde! Ghostly winds whistled, causing many large rocks to break down. The evil spirits and ghost winds fused together as one, forming a fierce and gruesome devil's head that rushed towards everyone, wanting to devour them all. With everything hanging by a thread, Fatty Jew threw out his heaven net compass. With a cracking sound, a brilliant light flashed out. The heaven net compass was smashed away by the ghost winds and crumbled away in the air. Fatty Jew felt his heart twist as he saw this. But at this time he couldn't care about such things. With a bizarre cry, Fatty Jew launched his movement technique and hurtled himself forwards at full speed. His body was fat and round. As he rushed forwards, he was like a plump mouse barreling forwards. He stayed close to the ground, borrowing the camouflage of the terrain to flee. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian relied on their exceptional movement abilities to keep close to Fatty Jew. Faintly, from behind, Lin Ming heard another miserable scream. Then, a rumbling explosion sounded out. He turned his head to see a dazzling pillar of flames shoot into the skies. This was the light of a martial artist self-exploding. There was someone that had been caught and covered by the ghost winds. Unwilling to become food for the ghost winds, this person decided to blow themselves up. When a martial artist exploded themselves, the resulting attack would be over 10 times more powerful than that martial artist's all-out strike. This explosion momentarily hindered the ghost winds, allowing the others that were attempting to escape a rare opportunity to catch their breath. But this opportunity only lasted for 1 or 2 breaths of time. Taking advantage of this chance, Fatty Jew grit his teeth and pulled out a new compass from his spatial ring. He quickly spoke an incantation and threw this compass outwards. Light sparkled. The compass exploded in mid-air, turning into a new force field. The effect of this force field was to conceal a person's life force as much as possible so ghosts couldn't detect them. Fatty Jew couldn't be bothered with seeing how effective this force field was. He continued to recklessly run forwards. Under the shield of this compass, the remaining 8 people ran several hundred miles forwards. Then, at this time, the surroundings suddenly changed. That bleak and desolate world, filled with shades of grey, had suddenly turned into a spring paradise. Here, there were spirit flowers and trickling spirit springs. The skies were lit by a radiant sunlight and white clouds floated peacefully about. This was like a fairyland on earth, a perfect utopia. As Fatty Jew stepped into this fairyland, he immediately paused, looking as if he had been struck by lightning. Everyone also came to a halting stop. For everyone here, Fatty Jew's every action and movement was the law. They had to follow everything he did. Lin Ming also stopped. He turned around and saw that as the mournful ghost wind blew into the boundaries of this paradise, it paused for a moment before completely vanishing. How could this be? Dragon Cloud asked, his voice weak. After stepping into this paradise of ultimate bliss, he noticed that Fatty Jew's complexion had become no better. In fact, it had even worsened. We seem to have fallen into deeper trouble, Lin Ming said, frowning. Fatty Jew ruefully smiled. He glanced at Lin Ming, saying, "You also understand the landscape of God-Burying Ridge?" Lin Ming shook his head. "I do not understand the landscape, but I saw that ghost wind stop as it reached the edge of this paradise. If there is something that could make ghostly beings not dare to take another step forwards, then it must be something even fiercer. Moreover, I can sense the Tao field here contains a killing intent." As Lin Ming rushed forwards, it seemed that he was doing so blindly, but the truth was that he had been sensing God-Burying Ridge's Tao field the entire time, verifying it with the jade pendant in order to find the safest routes. He could feel that the current situation far exceeded Fatty Jew's ability to handle. Counting on him alone would not be realistic. You're right. I didn't think that you would also be able to feel the God-Burying Ridge's Tao field killing intent. This sort of paradisiacal land is what us God-Burying Ridge guides call Paradise Reborn. The plants here are lush and filled with life, and everything seems as beautiful as a daydream, safe and comfortable. But the truth is that this is the most dangerous illusion. God-Burying Ridge is originally a desolate death trap. No grass should grow here and all wild beasts have become extinct. However, when things reach the extreme, they take a full circle all around to the start. When a death trap like this reaches the highest limits, it instead becomes a land filled with life and vitality. If you want to find a reason, the reason is that too many strong beings have died in this death trap. The entire flesh, blood, and even bones of these powerful beings become fertilizer, thus nourishing the land to the point where it can grow such vibrant spirit grass and spirit trees. Fatty Jew's words left everyone shocked speechless, several of them sucking in a breath of cold air. This verdant land was actually formed by absorbing the bodies of other powerful beings. The more people died here, the more powerful they were, the brighter and more beautiful the flowers would be. Sage Jew, please hurry and find some way for us to return to our old route. I no longer want to find any God-burying stones. The one who spoke was Monster Prince Juyu. He was able to survive the last catastrophe without any wounds. He didn't want to participate in God-Burying Ridge's trial to begin with, and the only reason he came here was purely because of Lin Ming. Now that the situation had spiraled out of control, he inevitably felt a deep hatred towards Lin Ming. Return. Fatty Jew bitterly smiled. He pulled out a broken compass. In order to escape, just then I had to break this heaven-net compass into pieces. It is no longer possible for me to divine the path to return. I can only rely on my experience to blindly guess a way back. At most I have a 20 to 30% chance of returning, and it's possible I will lead you deep into a danger zone. 20 to 30%. Monster Prince Juyu felt his heart skip a beat as he heard this low probability. He grit his teeth. 20 to 30% is good enough. It's much better than staying here to die. Monster Prince Juyu glared daggers at Lin Ming. This situation was all thanks to him. That's right. Trying is always better than waiting to die. Sage Ju, I say we try returning to our old route. Several martial artists echoed. At this time no one referred to Ju Shiyang as Fatty Ju. Instead, they respectfully called him Sage Ju. Fatty Ju ruefully smiled and nodded once. I can try it. However, I have no grasp as to whether or not we will succeed. As Fatty Ju spoke, a disagreeing voice spoke up. I don't think you can rely on that. If you return, perhaps you might die even faster. Everyone frowned upon hearing this. In the face of death, everyone wanted to hear hopeful words, not ones that brought despair. As they turned to the one speaking, they discovered that it was actually Lin Ming. Chapter 1477, Separate. Chapter 1477, Separate. Even though Lin Ming was strong, such words were far too bristling. Monster Prince Juyu was especially angered. We'll die faster if we return. Aren't you just speaking nonsense? If it weren't for you, why would I have come to this damned land to begin with? If you want to die, then you can stay here yourself. The rest of us are going back. Monster Prince Juyu breathlessly shouted out, his voice shaking with anger. He had already been driven past the limits of all tolerance by Lin Ming. The other martial artists were also unhappy with what Lin Ming said just now. It was true that Lin Ming was strong, but his understanding of God-burying Ridge wasn't necessarily any better than that of the rest of them, and he certainly didn't have the necessary experience to evaluate situations that Fatty Ju said. Thus, Lin Ming's claims were all based on nothing. Dragon Cloud hesitated for a moment before saying, Brother Lin, you said that we would die even quicker if we were to return. Do you have a reason for this claim? Lin Ming replied, At the entrance there will be some people that will stop us. They might have a World King powerhouse with them. Millimeter. Lin Ming's words caused all the martial artists to freeze in cold fear. When Fatty Ju had spoken about the entrances to the inner ridge, in truth there was only a single one, the rest were mere decorations. In other words, if they were to leave through a single exit, it would be easy for anyone to lay an ambush for them. Why would there be a World King hunting us? Aren't you just thinking about this too much? Many martial artists said. They simply didn't believe that they were worth a World King level powerhouse chasing them all the way here. But Dragon Cloud seemed to suddenly remember something. He turned towards Fatty Ju and said, Sage Ju, you said that someone attacked us with a curse technique and that is the reason your force field shattered. Fatty Ju nodded. This technique likely stems from the work of the Spider Brothers. Among the various guides of God-burying Ridge, they excel the most at curses. Why would they do such a thing? Do they have a grudge against you? Or are they trying to kill us to steal our treasures? We haven't even obtained any God-burying stones yet. There is no grudge between us at all. Fatty Ju shook his head. River water does not interfere with well water. We mind our own business without interfering with each other. Then that is really too strange. Dragon Cloud couldn't understand why the attack occurred. Perhaps someone hired them. Lin Ming suddenly said. Hired them? Dragon Cloud was stunned. He looked towards Lin Ming. It seems your background is deeper than I thought. Thinking about it carefully, Lin Ming wasn't surprised by this assassination attempt at all, and he had even said they would die quicker if they tried to return, as if he already knew someone had come here to hunt him down. With his tone, it was like he knew that a World King powerhouse lying in ambush was not just a speculation but a reality. In other words, their situation was far worse than anyone could have imagined. Do you recognize those that are hunting us down? Dragon Cloud asked. He was an intelligent young man. His words were already very close to the truth. Everyone looked towards Lin Ming, waiting for his reply. Lin Ming was silent for a brief moment. Then, he slowly and clearly said, "Without a doubt, they are coming here for me." "What?" Hearing Lin Ming say this, Dragon Cloud and Fatty Jew were still barely able to maintain their calm. However, everyone else began to seethe with rage. Monster Prince Juyu in particular was angered to the extreme. He suddenly strode forwards and grabbed the collar of Lin Ming's clothes. "So it was you who sent us tumbling into this hell hole. Even if you are being fucking hunted by someone, you shouldn't drag us down with you. Just what have we done to you that you would harm us like this?" Monster Prince Juyu was frantic, nearly about to attack. But at this time, he felt a thick killing intent surge out from Lin Ming. This terrifying killing intent locked onto his entire body, drowning him in an icy bath of despair as if he would die in the next moment. Monster Prince Juyu bounced backwards as if he had been bitten by a snake. His complexion was grim as he glared at Lin Ming, licking his lips as he said, "How about all of us attack him together and subdue him? Then, we can take him to his enemy. If we do that, then we'll be able to escape here safely." As Monster Prince Juyu spoke these words, he felt the pleasure of revenge. At this time it was assured that Lin Ming would become the target for everyone else. He felt that Lin Ming was far too stupid. This was a matter that everyone clearly wasn't aware of, and yet he deliberately chose to speak out about it. No one liked being dragged into a mess by others. "If you really wish to do so, then I'll play with you." Lin Ming's voice was indifferent. As he looked at Monster Prince Juyu, the killing intent in his eyes became increasingly thick. "Everyone calm down," Fatty Jew shouted out. But there were very few people able to calm down at this time. According to Fatty Jew, even if they safely returned, a number of them would still die. "How can you ask us to remain calm at a moment like this? We are being hunted by a World King powerhouse. No matter what world it was, a World King wasn't some random cabbage. They were able to control and overawe their own domain. We cannot be involved with him any longer. Let's ditch him here and continue by ourselves. At the very least we won't be sneak attacked anymore," some martial artists proposed. "Well said. We're already showing him extreme forbearance by not haggling over the disaster he has brought on our heads. If we bring him with us, then sooner or later we'll end up dying here." Everyone quickly came to a unanimous opinion. Listening to these people, Monster Prince Juyu's smile became increasingly wide. Now he finally had the opportunity he wanted to place Lin Ming in a death trap. In Monster Prince Juyu's eyes, there were dangers everywhere within the inner ridge. Without a guide to lead the way, this was an absolute world of death. Although it was true that Lin Ming was strong, this was a place where even world kings could perish. He had long harbored hatred for Lin Ming, and now he finally had a chance to retaliate against him. This made him feel far too good in his heart. And for this chance to take revenge, he was even happy that Lin Ming's enemy had hunted them all the way here, even if it meant they had been dragged into the mess. "Brother Lin, you have quite the character." Dragon Cloud looked towards Lin Ming. "You could clearly hide this matter, so why are you speaking out about it?" Lin Ming looked at Dragon Cloud and faintly said, "Why would I want to hide it?" Dragon Cloud was stunned, not knowing what to say. "Heh. This brat doesn't know of death or danger. He's harmed us this much and yet he still has the airs to be righteous," someone unhappily said. Lin Ming coldly sneered. In the Azura Road, strength was the law, strength was everything. If one was weak and pulled into a disaster where they died, they had no choice but to accept their fate. The strong survived and the weak perished. This was the most basic law of the jungle. If the one being chased was an ordinary martial artist, then even if everyone here seized that person and stripped them of all their possessions, that person could only fall on their knees and beg for mercy. But now that the person being chased was their teammate Lin Ming, they could only shout curses at him. "This is... I hope you see what I must do. I can only say that I am sorry." Fatty Jew helplessly spread his arms wide as he spoke to Lin Ming, the implication clear in his words. He would comply with the view of the majority of the people here. Moreover, bringing Lin Ming with them was indeed far too troublesome. They would continue to be hunted down the entire time. Fatty Jew didn't believe that he had any chance of living if he were chased down by the combined forces of the Spider Brothers and a World King powerhouse. Sorry. Dragon Cloud also helplessly said. Dragon Moon seemed as if she couldn't help saying something, but she finally kept silent. To her, abandoning a companion to escape was not a glorious or heroic approach to doing this. But at this moment, Xiao Moxian stepped forwards until she stood next to Lin Ming. She patted him on the shoulder, nodding as she indifferently said, "Haha, I think your social skills are far too lacking. It doesn't seem that anyone here is willing to help you. How about this little miss here be merciful and take you in?" As Xiao Moxian spoke these words, everyone was shocked that she would have such deep loyalty. As for Monster Prince Juyu, he suddenly jumped up. "Junior apprentice sister, what nonsense are you babbling on about? You want to go with him? He is a dead man walking. If you go with him you will be killed," Monster Prince Juyu impatiently said. He wanted to grab Xiao Moxian's hand but was actually dodged by her. "I say, why must you always be such a long-winded nagger? You go and do what you want and stop trying to manage me. Junior apprentice sister, has he taken control of your mind? Are you still clear-minded right now? If you go with him you will die." Monster Prince Juyu was about to go insane. He had finally thrown off Lin Ming with such great difficulty, and now that he was about to see his enemy die he was drowning in happiness. He fantasized about how, as long as he could leave safely, he could continue to journey through the Azura Road with Xiao Moxian and endure hardships with her, growing their feelings together all the while until she finally grew to love him. But now, Xiao Moxian actually wanted to join Lin Ming and die together with him. Lin Ming was also startled. He looked towards Xiao Moxian. "Why do you want to go with me?" Xiao Moxian wouldn't know that he had an emperor jade that was carved with the lines of the God-burying ridge Stao field. According to any normal person's reasoning, if she were to separate herself from the main group then although that wasn't complete suicide, it was still 9 chances of death and only once chance of survival. Xiao Moxian clucked her tongue and laughed. "Me, I'm not someone that likes to abandon their companions. Moreover, I also owe you a life." When Lin Ming first entered the Great Desolate he had rescued Xiao Moxian. With this graciousness there was no way that Xiao Moxian would abandon him here alone. That was truly being ungrateful and foregoing all virtues. "If you come with me, aren't you afraid of dying?" Lin Ming looked at Xiao Moxian, the corners of his lips curving up in a happy expression. He had to admit that for someone to disregard their own life or death and follow him at this moment was a touching decision. "Haha, do you think this miss will die? Stop joking around with me. I am someone who will become a true divinity in the future. Why would I perish in a tiny place like this?" Xiao Moxian carelessly tossed out these words. Lin Ming wasn't affected, but the others, including Fatty Ju and the dragon siblings, nearly choked on themselves. Become a true divinity. Many people already thought it was exaggerated to hear others say that they had set their goal to becoming an Empyrean. But to become a true divinity, that was unimaginable. This little girl was crazy. This was the first thought that appeared in everyone's minds. But as they recalled the ghostly movements that Xiao Moxian used to pass through the entrance to the inner ridge, they were actually rendered speechless. If every other aspect of hers was as outstanding as her movement techniques, then she really did have a chance of becoming a true divinity. This was simply an incomprehensible, unrivaled genius. Junior apprentice sister. Monster Prince Juyu was extremely depressed. He knew that once Xiao Moxian made a decision there was no way anyone could change her mind, even Empyrean Demon Dawn himself was no exception. As for him, he was a mere acquaintance with no weight in her heart. Wanting to change her mind was simply a dream. "It's useless speaking to me. I guess you don't plan on coming with me anymore, so bye-bye. I hope that we will see you alive once we leave this place." Xiao Moxian giggled, seeming as if she wasn't heading deeper into the perilous God-burying ridge but rather having a nice outdoor stroll in the autumn. Monster Prince Juyu clenched his fists so tightly that he drew blood. It was indeed impossible for him to continue following Xiao Moxian. Although he desired and fervently wished to obtain her, he wouldn't continue onwards if he knew it led to certain death. To Monster Prince Juyu, his own life was the most precious treasure of all, surpassing everything else. The groups had been determined. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian would go together in one group and everyone else would be in another group. But at this time, a deep fragrance suddenly stirred up in the grasslands. Beautiful flower petals danced in the breeze, fluttering along with the winds. This warm and delightful spring scene should normally have caused one to sigh in joy, but upon feeling this spring breeze, Fatty Jew's complexion suddenly changed. Bad, this is bad. Chapter 1478, 10,000 Corpse Flowers. Chapter 1478, 10,000 Corpse Flowers. What's wrong, Sage Jew? Everyone here in God-Burying Ridge could be described as frightened birds. Now that they heard Fatty Jew say such words, all of them raised their guard. Don't breathe in that fragrance, it is the fragrance of 10,000 corpse flowers, Fatty Jew shouted out. However, as he did so, a martial artist was covered by this fragrance. In that moment, the martial artist seemed to lose consciousness as his eyes became lost. Flower petals began to fall down from the air like butterflies, landing on this person's skin. Then, these flower petals melted, turning into a bright blood-red liquid, then sank into his body. The martial artist's body shook. In the next moment, a macabre and gruesome scene occurred. More and more flower petals fell onto this martial artist, and more red liquid seeped into his body, spreading all over. Finally, even the martial artist himself began to melt apart into red liquid. Then, those bright blood-red flowers began to germinate within him, sprouting out enchanting buds. The roots of these flowers greedily absorbed the liquefied body of the martial artist. They were actually using the martial artist as nourishment. This caused a tingling chill to crawl up the scalps of these people. Don't let those flower petals touch you. This is how the 10,000 corpse flowers reproduce. A single flower petal can grow into a 10,000 corpse flower, Fatty Jew rapidly said with a sound transmission. 10,000 corpse flowers were the most common type of creature in this paradise reborn land that used powerhouses as nourishment. They were extremely valuable for medicinal purposes. However, if someone wished to pluck these flowers, the price might be their life. At this time, the entire sky was filled with drifting flower petals. The bursts of flower fragrance met the senses, and this flower fragrance actually had the effect of attacking one's divine sense. By smelling this fragrance, one's thoughts would slow down, making it much harder to avoid the flower petals. Damn it! Stand back to back. We'll win if we can withstand this for a short time, Fatty Jew rapidly cried out. At the same time, he drew a thick cleaver and slashed out without holding anything back. Torrents of cleaver light fell downwards, each ray cutting through 4 or 5 flower petals, causing those flower petals to dissolve into red liquid that sprinkled onto the ground. However, after every flower petal was cut apart, the cleaver light would greatly weaken. After breaking through a 5th flower petal, the cleaver light would break apart. There were simply far too many flower petals dancing in the air. Everyone attacked together. Dragon Cloud and Dragon Moon attacked with their spears. Their strength was not weak at all. Facing one side, they were able to destroy all of the incoming flower petals with their spear light. Several other martial artists stood back to back, relying on each other to resist the attacks of these flower petals. If any one of them were to fall, all of them would die. And at this time, Lin Ming and Xian Moxian were by themselves, soon covered in this rain of red flower petals. Junior apprentice sister, Monster Prince Juyu shouted. Leave them be, we can't even take care of ourselves, a martial artist rapidly said. The martial artists that entered God-Burying Ridge had extremely fragile relations to begin with, so who could care about others when disaster befell them? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Bright red flower petals were like flying knives that spun towards Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. This beautiful, fairy tale-like scene was actually filled with a thick killing intent. The two of them were instantly blocked in by over 100 flower petals. The results of this scenario could be imagined. Once these flower petals touched the body, the consequences would be horrifying. After falling into such a dangerous situation, Lin Ming wasn't hurried at all. He poured his strength into his inner world, causing a boundless aura to surge out from within himself. Grand mist space. Who? Star-heavy grand mist energy recklessly swept outwards, causing the space around Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian to immediately become as hard as a wall. The terrifying pressure pushed upon the flower petals, making them as slow as if they had fallen into a lake of molasses. What strange flower petals! Through his formidable divine sense, Lin Ming discovered that every flower petal contained a resentful spirit. Moreover, these flowers were filled with blood vessels. Rather than flowers, they were more like condensed flesh and blood essence. The 10,000 corpse flower was a flower of flesh and blood. 3 essences as one, heretical god force. Lin Ming revolved his strength to the limit. With a loud series of explosive sounds, a massive number of flower petals imploded upon themselves underneath the pressure of the grand mist space. Simultaneously, Xiao Moxian formed a series of seals with her hands. Black flames blew outwards, setting the remaining flower petals on fire. As the flesh and blood was scorched away, the resentful spirits also disintegrated. In just several breaths of time, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's combined attack completely eliminated the 100+ flower petals. This is. Even Fatty Ju and the others who were still surrounded by flower petals were shocked speechless. They knew that Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were strong, but it was bizarre to be strong to such a degree. It seemed that the two of them alone were stronger than the rest of them combined. In truth, the fact that Lin Ming could easily obtain victory was because his grand mist space was best suited to such a combat environment. As for Xiao Moxian's flames, they inherently restrained all ghosts and spirits. 30 feet to the front left, behind that grey rock, attack together. Lin Ming rapidly said to Xiao Moxian with a true essence sound transmission. As the many flower petals burst apart, he spread his formidable sense and quickly found the hiding spot of the 10,000 corpse flower's main body. The main body of the 10,000 corpse flower was extremely skilled at hiding. Even an experienced god-burying ridge guide would find it difficult to locate it. The reason that Lin Ming could accomplish this was because of the divine dream law and his powerful divine sense. Moreover, it was also because when those many flower petals exploded, the main body of the 10,000 corpse flower received a backlash of energy, causing the energy fluctuations around it to wildly pulse about. Hearing Lin Ming's words, Xiao Moxian didn't hesitate in the least. She slashed out with her whip, stirring up a terrifying wave of phoenix true fire. At the same time, Lin Ming also followed up with his spear. At that moment, from behind Lin Ming, the phantom of the heretical god tree appeared. The power of thunder and fire, heavenly tribulation came tyrannically crashing down. Bang! A terrifying noise sounded out as a large chunk of this beautiful paradise was ripped apart. Then, a giant scarlet root that looked like a ginseng was raised out of the ground by this explosion. For a time, it was unknown how many root hairs were torn up. Squee! The bright red root began to emit mouse-like screams in the air. It seemed to have a spiritual intelligence of its own and was struggling around in the force field in an attempt to escape. The 10,000 corpse flower was found by that youth. Fatty Ju was completely shocked. Not only had Lin Ming broken through the besiegement of the 10,000 corpse flower, but he had also dug out its main body. The main body of the 10,000 corpse flower was not powerful at all, it only excelled in hiding. Once its hiding spot was found out, even a half-step Holy Lord powerhouse would be able to kill it. Squeak! Squeak! Beneath the horrifying pressure of the grand mist force field, the 10,000 corpse flower emitted waves of miserable screams. Its root body looked like an overfilled water bag, about to explode at any moment. Brother Lin, don't destroy it. That is a precious type of raw medicinal material. Fatty Ju quickly reminded Lin Ming as he saw the 10,000 corpse flower about to explode beneath the force field. Lin Ming's mind stirred. Without removing the grand mist force field, he formed hundreds of seals with his hand that flew into the 10,000 corpse flower root. Divine seal art, God-forbidding seal. Puff, puff, puff. The aura of a black hole came shrouding over the 10,000 corpse flower, locking down the flow of energy within it. The 10,000 corpse flower wildly cried out as it was being imprisoned by the God-forbidding seals, but soon after that there was no more sound as it was completely sealed away. As the 10,000 corpse flower died, the remaining flower petals withered and fell. They slowly decayed, turning into red liquid that soaked into the ground. The remaining survivors eyed Lin Ming and also the blood-red 10,000 corpse flower in his hands. This human youth was too terrifying. Such a dreadful disaster was easily solved by him. Fatty Jew knew that the reason Lin Ming was able to accomplish this was because he could be called perfect in all aspects. He had used that strange force field to break through the attack of the 10,000 corpse flowers' flower petals, and then he had used his far superior sense to immediately lock onto the position of the 10,000 corpse flowers' main body. There was no weakness in the methods that Lin Ming had used. And thinking about his other aspects, he also surpassed everyone by far, far enough that they couldn't look up to him. This was a true extreme genius. Little sister, it seems we were mistaken about something. He does have the blood of an azure dragon within his body, but his achievements are not because of this blood. Rather, this bloodline is simply something that improves upon his perfection. Dragon Cloud looked at Lin Ming, a strange feeling in his heart. As someone who was proud of his Dragon Clan bloodline, he was thoroughly overwhelmed by Lin Ming. Hey, let me take a look, this thing looks really fun. Xiao Moxian commented as she looked at the 10,000 corpse flower in Lin Ming's hand. She reached out a curious hand to pinch it. Even when facing such a dreadful thing that was rank with blood, Xiao Moxian could still see it as a toy. One couldn't help but sigh with admiration over how strong her nerves were. A martial artist's life was filled with life and death, that was something she was long used to seeing. She had killed countless people already, and as for something like a 10,000 corpse flower, she simply didn't care about the dangers it brought. This was the inherent risk-loving nature that Xiao Moxian had. The 10,000-year corpse flower resembled a blood-red ginseng, but its main body actually felt meaty, as if it were formed from flesh and blood. Looking through its skin, one could even see lines that were filled with red liquid. It seemed like an animal but also a plant. This thing is similar to the 10,000-year corpse grass in the eternal demon abyss. Even the name is similar, what a strange coincidence. Lin Ming mused. The 10,000-year corpse grass he captured in the past was also a spiritual plant that grew on the corpses of powerhouses. Of course, compared to the massive number of powerhouses that died in the Azura Road, the powerhouses of the eternal demon abyss could only be considered common mortals. Without a source of good nourishment, the 10,000-year corpse grass was far from being as powerful as this 10,000 corpse flower. In truth, the eternal demon abyss and God-burying ridge both had sealed force fields. Moreover, they were lands where many powerhouses perished. It wasn't strange for these two different lands to evolve similarly strange spirit plants. What use does this have? Lin Ming asked Fatty Jew. Brother Lin's 10,000 corpse flower can be refined to make a great number of pills. Eating it directly is also beneficial. In particular, if it were given to a contract beast to eat, it can help quicken the evolution of the contract beast. After seeing Lin Ming show his great skill twice, Fatty Jew became increasingly respectful towards him. Quicken a contract beast's evolution? Xiao Moxian excitedly said. Her first thought was Big Yellow and having Big Yellow eat this plant to help hasten his growth. But the main work of capturing this 10,000 corpse flower was due to Lin Ming, so it wasn't considered hers at all. Make pills, Lin Ming thought for a moment. He didn't know what sort of pills the 10,000 corpse flower could make. Brother Lin, I have here a jade slip that records the details of many magical treasures of God-burying ridge, and there are also many various uses for them. You can take it for a look. After looking through it, you can simply destroy it. Fatty Jew tossed a blue jade slip towards Lin Ming. Lin Ming received the jade slip and swept through it with his divine sense. The contents were indeed as Fatty Jew had said. It displayed tens of thousands of magical and mystical objects that had been found in God-burying ridge before. Among the records of some magical things, not only did it list their weakness, method of capturing, and even specific dangers, there were also many ways listed to refine pills from them. However, most magical things only had an extremely short description. It was clear that this was because the information was lacking. It was obvious that this jade slip was quite valuable. It was certainly one of the main inheritances of the God-burying ridge guides. To the guides of God-burying ridge, the most important inheritances were skills to live in God-burying ridge, divination techniques, and methods to judge the danger of various landscapes. This sort of core inheritance was what Fatty Jew relied on to find food. It was the sum of all information that Fatty Jew's predecessors had slowly gathered over time in exchange for their lives. He certainly wouldn't give such a core inheritance to Lin Ming. Moreover, it wasn't something that Lin Ming could learn in a single day. Thank you. Lin Ming began to skim through the jade slip. His divine sense was powerful and he had a photographic memory. Not to mention the many records of magical things listed in the jade slip, Lin Ming was even able to quickly and perfectly memorize the endless mysterious Azura Sutra from the Emperor Stone. In just a single incense stick of time, Lin Ming finished reading through the jade slip. Then, in front of Fatty Jew, he crumbled the jade slip to dust. Farewell and goodbye. I wish you all the best and hope you can leave here alive, Lin Ming said. Then, he looked towards Xiao Moxian and said, Are you sure you won't change your mind? Of course, Xiao Moxian said, rubbing her chin. Are you very moved by how heroic I am? Well, a bit. Lin Ming was startled for a moment before he laughed. Like this, the two of them walked side by side into the far-off distance. Soon, their figures vanished in the sea of flowers and grass. As Fatty Jew saw this, he didn't know what to feel. Big brother. I think that separating from them might have been a mistake, Dragon Moon whispered from beside Dragon Cloud. Dragon Cloud shook his head. If we went with them, we would have encountered more dangers. We've come with them all this way, but have we been short of people dying? Dragon Cloud rhetorically asked. Dragon Moon could only agree. Just because Lin Ming was able to survive a disaster didn't mean that they also had the ability to do so. In a life-or-death moment, no one would risk their own survival in order to save a stranger. We have to be cautious, and in truth, if Lin Lanjian wants to survive through dual crises of escaping a World King powerhouse and also traveling through God-Burying Ridge, his hopes of doing so are near zero. No matter how strong he is, he cannot be stronger than a World King powerhouse. As Dragon Cloud said this, many people agreed. Even Fatty Jew wasn't an exception. The disparity between the Divine Transformation Realm and the World King Realm was too great. It was impossible to overcome a gap of 3 great boundaries. Moreover, there were far more terrifying dangers in God-Burying Ridge that Lin Ming wouldn't be able to deal with. If he didn't understand the terrain here, he could easily step beyond hope of redemption. Let's go. Fatty Jew waved his hand. Everyone turned and walked away, beginning their life-or-death journey anew. They seemed to have separated. Several hundred miles away, in a mountain valley, the Imp-Ray Spider brothers were using a compass to divine the situation. However, their tracking mark had been placed on Fatty Jew and not Lin Ming. They weren't sure if Lin Ming had really separated from Fatty Jew or not, but had extrapolated this from the available information and signs they had. Separated? Imperial Prince Naki traced his chin. If they separated, then they must have realized something, otherwise they wouldn't have done something so stupid such as dividing their forces. However, Lin Ming shouldn't know just who is hunting him down, and separating randomly in God-Burying Ridge is no different from suicide. Naki quickly thought. If Lin Ming separated himself from Zhu Shiyang, it would indeed be far, far more difficult to find him. Let's speed up. The Spider brothers had awkward expressions. The faster they went, the more dangers they would have to undergo. Millimeter? Are you questioning my orders? Naki frowned. We do not dare. We understand. The Spider brothers could only grit their teeth and agree. When one was underneath the house of others, they had no choice but to lower their heads. If they were being employed by a World King powerhouse, that meant higher rewards, but at the same time they also had to swallow any insults and suffer even greater risks. Several lords, the entrance to the inner ridge is not too far away. As long as we enter the inner ridge, that means we will all be in the same sealed-off Dao field as the person you are looking for. At that time, we can use our divine sense to search for them, but doing so may alert unknown existences there, bringing in even more dangers. The Spider brothers cautioned. They had already arrived in front of the inner ridge entrance. Chapter 1480, Hunt. Chapter 1480, Hunt. In the grand and rolling desert, strong winds cut like knives. The endless yellow sand buried the bones of strange and unusual beasts, looking bleak and desolate. This place seemed like a death trap, but as Lin Ming saw this scene he actually let out a sigh of relief. They had finally escaped the Paradise Reborn lands that they had fled into. Lin Ming only had a basic understanding of the Dao field traces left behind by the Azura Roadmaster in the Jade Pendant. But, by using this little bit of knowledge he was able to emerge from Paradise Reborn. Moreover, by verifying the terrain with the Jade Pendant map, he obtained an even more profound understanding of the Emperor Jade. I must say, Lin Ming. Xiao Moxian smirked as she spoke, a playful tone in her voice. She had called Lin Ming by his true name and not Lin Lanjian. What? Lin Ming asked Xiao Moxian. How come you don't have any reaction at all? Although your identity is already obvious, if I suddenly call you by your name, shouldn't you at least be shocked or surprised? After suppressing it for such a long time, Xiao Moxian was finally able to tear down Lin Ming's secret identity. She was originally anticipating seeing the surprise on his face. That would at least give her a little bit of a sense of accomplishment. However, Lin Ming's reaction was far too calm. This was like someone doing their best to correctly guess a riddle, but the riddler themselves wasn't affected at all. This made Xiao Moxian feel a bit unhappy. Didn't you know a long time ago? Moreover, I already knew that you knew. Lin Ming faintly smiled as he indifferently spoke. Well, that was boring. Xia Moxian spread her arms wide in defeat. What do you plan on doing next? Not only are you being chased down by a world king, but you also have to face the perilous God-burying ridge, a land of almost certain death. And, what is worse is that the world king and his group have guides to lead the way while we are like headless flies in this chaos. No matter how you look at it, we're going to die without a doubt. If you knew you were going to die, then why would you follow me? Lin Ming said, smiling. I said that I owe you a life, and since I saw you about to die soon I thought I should lend you a hand, but, you seemed pretty confident, so you must have a plan of some kind. Why don't you tell me? Lin Ming shook his head. I have yet to think of a good plan. Frankly speaking, God-burying ridge isn't too threatening to me. The greatest threat is from that world king powerhouse chasing me down. Now, what I have to do first is to feel out the specifics of God-burying ridge's Dao field and verify it with what I know in my heart. If I can familiarize myself with the environment here, then I can control the landscape and the advantage. Only then will I have the ability to contend with a world king. Lin Ming casually said. But as Xiao Moxian heard this, she was secretly surprised. Without a guide to lead him through God-burying ridge, Lin Ming actually said that God-burying ridge didn't pose too great a threat to him. Did he have something he could rely on? What shocked Xiao Moxian the most was that Lin Ming said he wanted to familiarize himself with God-burying ridge's environment and use this advantage to contend with a world king. This was simply incomprehensible to her. If it weren't for Lin Ming acknowledging his true identity just now, Xiao Moxian might have suspected he was someone else who had inherited the legacy of some God-burying ridge guide. While Xiao Moxian was basking in her amazement, Lin Ming was searching the Jade Pendant with his sense, looking for a place where he could hide himself and prepare for a guerrilla battle. But at this time, Lin Ming suddenly felt a light sense wash over him, lasting for only the most fleeting moment. This caused Lin Ming to be startled. Although this sense was incomparably vague, his intuition wasn't wrong. Someone was using some arcane searching technique to find his location in God-burying ridge. In Heaven Devil City there were innumerable martial artists. As long as he used an appearance-changing technique, there was no search technique that would have any effect on finding him. But now he was in God-burying ridge, a land where there wasn't anyone within 10,000 miles. As long as someone found him with their searching technique, regardless of whether or not he had changed his appearance, they would still find him. This other party clearly knew what happened to him after he entered God-burying ridge and was looking for him. We've been discovered. Lin Ming sucked in a deep breath. Without Lin Ming mentioning it, Xiao Moxian had also noticed that faint detection sense sweep over them just now. If someone dares to recklessly use a searching technique like this in God-burying ridge, they must really not fear any evil beings they might draw in. It seems your guess was right. We really are being chased down by a world king powerhouse. Xiao Moxian couldn't smile at this time. They were stuck in a danger zone and also being hunted down by a world king. Follow me. Lin Ming turned towards a direction and used his movement technique, instantly launching forwards. At this time, several hundred miles away, Imperial Prince Naki and his group of people were surrounded by a mob of ghosts, engaged in a fierce battle. With the Spider Brothers to guide them and also force fields to hide them, Naki and his group could have easily ventured deep into God-Burying Ridge and obtained all sorts of treasures. However, as soon as they entered the inner ridge, Mr. Ju and the others had used all sorts of searching techniques like the heaven spying art, making them shine like a lighthouse at night. This caused all of the surrounding evil beings to come hurtling towards them. How troublesome. Naki frowned as his halberd smashed through a corpse devil. With 2 World King level powerhouses present, there was no threat from these evil beings. Even so, this undoubtedly hindered their speed. At this time, from beside Naki, Tian Mingzi suddenly said, "We should divide our group into 2 millimeter." Naki looked towards Tian Mingzi. "It is far too inefficient to search for them as we are now. If we split up, it will be much quicker." In their group they had 2 World Kings and their searching techniques overlapped to a great extent. If they could divide their group in half, it would indeed be much faster. Naki and Mr. Ju looked at each other, and then Mr. Ju said, "All right." With Tian Mingzi's great World King cultivation, he simply didn't need a guide to walk through God-Burying Ridge. A great World King was only inferior to an Empyrean. Unless he ventured into the few absolute death zones in God-Burying Ridge, there was nothing here that was a threat to him. Of course, the premise for all this was that they didn't enter Tragic Death Valley. Tragic Death Valley was a place where even Empyreans would die. Tian Mingzi nodded. He launched his movement technique and readied himself to fly away. "But I hope that I can leave a tracking rune on your body. This is also for your own safety. How about it?" Just as Tian Mingzi was about to leave, Mr. Ju stopped him with some words. A tracking rune appeared on his fingertip. This was one of the Azura Road's god runes and symbolized the laws of the Azura Road. Once this rune marked his body, then it was impossible for even someone of Tian Mingzi's cultivation level to remove. Tian Mingzi frowned. He didn't like to be followed, but after a moment's hesitation he nodded his head in assent. Mr. Ju flicked his fingers and the rune shot into Tian Mingzi's body. Then, Tian Mingzi didn't delay any further. He turned and flew away. Looking at Tian Mingzi's vanishing back, Imperial Prince Naki said, "If that fellow suddenly proposed to divide into 2 groups, he must have some other reason to do so." Naki was someone who believed everyone was plotting something, and Tian Mingzi was someone who was particularly good at scheming. If he suddenly wanted to split up the group, he was definitely trying something. He might have discovered something. Perhaps he wishes to explore a lucky chance by himself, or perhaps he found Lin Ming and is in a hurry to kill him so he can plunder the secrets from his body for himself. As Mr. Ju spoke these words, Naki wrinkled his eyebrows. "Yet you still let him leave. Even a tracking mark is useless. It will only take an instant to kill Lin Ming with the difference in their cultivation. At that time, all the secrets on Lin Ming's body will be taken by him." Mr. Ju said, "Imperial Prince, Your Highness, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Lin Ming has a great destiny on his body, and even if all of us join together and attack him now, killing him won't be easy. Even Tian Mingzi only guarantees our chances to be higher. If Tian Mingzi can really kill Lin Ming, then even if he takes all of Lin Ming's secrets for himself, we will also have gained. I suppose. Naki would certainly be happy if he didn't need to pay any price to kill Lin Ming. Of course, this was based on the fact that he simply didn't know what secret Lin Ming had on him. If he knew about the existence of the magic cube, then perhaps even the good fortune Saint Sovereign would personally tear apart God-Burying Ridge. He might even engage in all-out war with the Soul Race for that reason alone. Mr. Ju's guess was correct. Whether it was in strength or sensing ability, Tian Mingzi surpassed Mr. Ju. Even Mr. Ju's heaven spying art was unable to compare with Tian Mingzi. A moment ago Tian Mingzi had already found Lin Ming's location. A man and a woman traveling alone, that was undoubtedly Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. The reason he proposed to divide the group into 2 was because he wanted to have sole possession of Lin Ming's secrets. Lin Ming, The end of your days has come. Everything that you have will be mine. Tian Ming's eyes shimmered with an ominous light. He had waited for this day for far too long. He desperately wished to kill Lin Ming. As Tian Ming's sense passed over Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, it was even clearer than it was a moment ago. Lin Ming's mind chilled and he stopped where he was. There is no need to continue running. The enemy has arrived, and he is much faster than we are. Chapter 1481, Meeting Tian Mingzi. Chapter 1481, Meeting Tian Mingzi. Millimeter? Xiao Moxian paused. Just now, she had also felt a powerful sense cover him. From this sense alone, she could tell that this other party was far stronger than an ordinary world king. Although you have a great destiny, who would have thought that I would have such bad luck following you? To think that in this damned place we've been caught by a world king powerhouse. Xiao Moxian took out a long whip from her spatial ring. Fleeing no longer had any meaning. Now that they had been locked onto by a world king powerhouse's divine sense, with the difference in their speed it was only a matter of time before they were overtaken. Who is chasing you? Xiao Moxian asked. Lin Ming frowned. I thought it would be the Saint Race's Imperial Prince Naki, but it seems someone else has come this time. As the enemy approached closer and closer, Lin Ming could faintly feel that this person's aura was becoming increasingly strong. This was. As Lin Ming thought of this person's possible status, his pupils shrank. And in the next moment, his speculations were proven correct. With a flash of black light, a tall and young-looking man appeared in front of Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian as if he had teleported there. He wore a long robe and held a black sword in his hand. His body burned with faint black flames. His complexion was deep and gloomy and his jewel pupils were blood red. This person was Tian Mingzi. At this time, Tian Ming's entire body was gushing forth with a dense aura. His long hair flew in the wind, making him look like a demon god at night. It was a tremendous pressure to face this type of person. Lin Ming, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. The man's smooth and melodious voice contained an icy killing intent, as if it wafted up from the nine nether abyss. It really is you. Lin Ming grasped his phoenix blood spear, his complexion dignified. This situation was far worse than he had anticipated. He had thought that only a world king had come, but now it was a great world king powerhouse. 10 years. I've been waiting for this day for 10 years. Tian Mingzi slowly floated down to the ground, landing in front of Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. He glanced over Lin Ming's appearance and fiendishly grinned. Your appearance-changing technique is wonderful. To think that it can even change your aura. Unfortunately, that no longer matters. Lin Ming's vision sharpened. His face began to gradually distort and transform. His skin became fairer and smoother, his looks became much more handsome and delicate, and he even grew, causing him to look stronger and more robust. He had restored his original appearance, and beside him, Xiao Moxian had also lifted her concealment, returning to her originally beautiful appearance, that of an enchantress who could bring the downfall of nations. Young lady, you really are Jixiana. Tian Ming looked at Xiao Moxian, causing her eyelids to jump. She certainly recognized Tian Mingzi. This was because Tian Mingzi had come from the Demon Dawn Great World and had also entered Demon Dawn Heavenly Palace in the past to study their inheritances. However, she couldn't rely on any graciousness that Tian Mingzi owed Empyrean Demon Dawn in the past. Tian Mingzi was already a traitor to his universe and now he no longer had any scruples. It was likely that he wouldn't mind killing both of them here. Xiao Moxian had the Dark Phoenix bloodline within her body and was considered a top-quality alchemy material. The efficacy was the same as eating a living god beast. So it's you. Why are you hunting us? Xiao Moxian coldly asked. That matter is far too complex to say. All sorts of grudges gathered together have doomed me to kill Lin Ming. I must say that I have waited for this day far too long, thus, there is nothing you can do or say that will stop me today. Miss Ji, you don't plan on staying with Lin Ming, right? Xiao Moxian continued silently holding her whip. Then that is too unfortunate. Tian Mingzi began to stroke the front of his blade, killing intent overflowing from his body without end. You should know that going against me now is the same as dying. Your grandfather showed graciousness to me, so I could have originally left you alive. However, 10 years ago I lost a hand and I suffered tremendous damage to my blood vitality, even causing the spirit body I trained for so long to have a flaw. Now, it is not possible for me to step into the Empyrean realm. What I need are top-grade blood elixirs to restore my lost blood vitality. As Qian Mingzi spoke, he revealed the extent of his killing intent. At this time, he was like a human-eating beast. Although Xiao Moxian was brave to the heavens, even she felt a cold chill crawl up her back. It was hard for anyone to directly face Qian Mingzi's gaze. He actually used such a casual tone to state that he wanted to eat her. In all her years, Xiao Moxian had encountered many people with perverse ambitions who wanted to befriend her in order to gain benefits from her body. But, most of these people's thoughts were to obtain her primordial yin and dual cultivate with her. Very few people were as crazy as Qian Mingzi. Qian Mingzi lifted his sword high, his aura suddenly erupting. A fearful force field came falling down to lock in Lin Ming, preventing any chance that he could escape. Lin Ming, you don't think that you still have any chance of escaping alive right now, do you? I will put everything I have into killing you and will not leave you any chance to escape. After you die, I will inherit your everything and I will even help you accomplish your unfinished dream of reaching that elusive peak of martial arts. As for you, you can become a stone that paves my road to the top. As Qian Mingzi spoke, he hurtled forwards. The long sword in his hand came slashing out to behead Lin Ming. As Qian Mingzi had said before, he didn't hold back anything in his strike. A black sword light emitted a keening whistle as it tore through the surrounding space like paper. Beneath the imprisonment of the aura around him, Lin Ming couldn't dodge at all. Even if he fled to the ends of heaven and the edges of the sea, this sword would still home in on him, following him forever. This was the all-out strike of a great world king. It absolutely wasn't something Lin Ming could hope to contend with. In this critical moment, Lin Ming poured all of his true essence into his inner world. Origin energy violently surged. The moment Qian Mingzi's sword pierced forwards, a palace of black stone left Lin Ming's inner world, rapidly spinning, rapidly growing. Millimeter. This is. Qian Mingzi was shocked. From this black stone palace he could feel an ancient and boundless aura. It was clearly some extraordinary thing. Of course, even if this were some extraordinary treasure, Qian Mingzi didn't think that it had any chance of harming him when used by a mere divine transformation realm martial artist. However, to be careful, Qian Mingzi avoided this black stone palace, his sword light circling around it and continuing to thrust towards Lin Ming. As the sword light was about to cut off Lin Ming's head, in that instant, a dark divine light shot out from the black stone palace, covering both Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. Don't resist. Lin Ming quickly said to Xiao Moxian with a true essence sound transmission. In truth, even without his sound transmission, Xiao Moxian was well aware of what was happening. She relaxed her guard, allowing that black light to sweep her up into the black stone palace. In the next moment there was a terrifying explosive sound as Qian Mingzi's sword crashed into empty space. The earth trembled as thousands of jins of sand was recklessly lifted up by energy, shooting into the world like a massive tsunami. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were dizzy for a short moment, but they were protected from the energy impact by the black light. Then, they landed within the black stone palace. Peng! With a muffled sound the two people hit a wall and bounced onto the ground. Lin Ming felt all the blood within his body tumble around and he stretched out a hand to brace himself. He felt something soft beneath his hand, and as he looked down he could see that Xiao Moxian was being pushed down by him. Sorry. Lin Ming awkwardly apologized. I'm sorry that you didn't hurry up with that. Aya, that really hurt. Xiao Moxian rubbed her head. Just a moment ago her head bumped into the wall. Luckily she had her god-beast bloodline, otherwise she would have been seriously bruised and beaten. What is this place? Xiao Moxian asked. This is Primordius Heavenly Palace. Lin Ming briefly stated. In the Eternal Demon Abyss, Lin Minute had inherited the legacy of Empyrean Primordius. If he didn't consider the Primordius martial intent, then the Primordius Heavenly Palace was absolutely the most precious treasure that Empyrean Primordius had left behind. As long as he entered Primordius' heavenly palace, then any martial artist with a cultivation below the Empyrean realm would be unable to break through. Of course, the premise of all this was that Primordius' heavenly palace had enough energy. Primordius' heavenly palace? Xiao Moxian was startled. Before she could respond, the black stone palace violently shook. Xiao Moxian tumbled about, unable to hold back a shout as she was tossed into the air. Tian Mingzi is attacking us. Lin Ming's thoughts stirred and images of what was occurring outside Primordius' heavenly palace appeared above him. Outside of the heavenly palace, Tian Mingzi was holding his sword with both hands and wildly hacking at the heavenly palace. However, his barrage of all-out attacks was only able to cause the heavenly palace to tremble. To break through its outer walls was actually impossible. Just what is this palace? Tian Mingzi grimly said. He had thought he was going to kill Lin Ming, but now everything had suddenly changed at the last moment. This was a piece of meat near his mouth that had escaped at the last moment. This palace is protected by array formations. I can't break through, Tian Mingzi frowned. This palace was definitely something refined by an Empyrean, moreover it was definitely an extreme Empyrean powerhouse, otherwise there was no way just an array formation would be so firm. It really is Empyrean Primordius. As Tian Mingzi looked at the black stone palace, he could feel the aura of the primal Grand Mist universe. Before this he had already looked at as many ancient texts as he could find. With the information he gleaned, he suspected that the Supreme Elder who died on the Sky Spill planet was Empyrean Primordius, and now this confirmed his suspicions. The rumors said that Empyrean Primordius controlled some shocking secret in the past, something that alarmed even the Saint race. Now, this secret is likely to have fallen into Lin Ming's hands. If I can obtain it, then I will ascend to the heavens with a single leap. As Tian Mingzi thought of this, he grew increasingly excited. Although Lin Ming was hiding within Primordius' heavenly palace, Tian Mingzi wasn't worried at all. Primordius' heavenly palace relied on its array formations to protect itself, but these array formations needed an astronomical supply of energy. As long he continued to attack and exhausted the energy or Primordius' heavenly palace, then catching Lin Ming was simply a matter of time. Thinking this, Tian Mingzi summoned all the true essence within his body and readied himself to attack once more. But at this time, Primordius' heavenly palace wildly shook. In the next moment it turned into a beam of light, shooting into the horizon like a meteor with unbelievable speed. What? Tian Mingzi nearly bit his tongue. This palace could actually fly, and fly so quickly. Damn. If it continues flying deep into God-burying Ridge, then I will have to face considerable risks to keep up with it, and wanting to capture it will be even harder. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.